That's what gets me. That's what works out.
My pen or the ballot.
Oh, I got one. Thank you, though.
How many applicants do we have for that?
Remember that right now. We still have.
I know Shakespeare Park applied again, that's all I know.
Where are the people on this one?
I'll give it to Slade. She'll do that.
I
So
would-
we'll send the notice out Monday. That's 10 days before we have to, before, because this is the 31st, so we're okay. Yeah. And he'll be told that.
And again, I'm just like. I like that sentence.
Yeah, well,
Consider not
he adjusted.
23-19 to correct the legal description of fire Santa Clara.
Not here. Yeah.
Who wants to go on vacation?
Yeah.
Did you get your?
Oh, Jimmy's doing the prayer. That's why.
I figured, yeah.
We still never done.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's something.
Yeah, that's true. We haven't done this.
Okay, it's 5 o'clock,
Look at that.
so we'll go ahead and call this regular scheduled meeting of the Santa Clara City Council to order. I'd like to welcome everyone who's come to the meeting tonight. Appreciate you being here. We'd like to begin the meeting with an opening ceremony, Pledge of Allegiance. We've asked Councilman Ben Shakespeare to lead us in the pledge, and then the opening comments will be offered by Jimmy Keston with Solomon's Porch Foursquare Fellowship, St. George Interfaith Council. Welcome, Jimmy. Ben, would everyone please rise and salute the flag?
Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor and council, what a privilege it is to be in front of you once again on behalf of all of the church family at Solomon's Porch and the Interfaith Council. We are so grateful that Santa Clara appreciates allowing us to come in from the various faith communities and open your meetings with a word or a prayer. As a Santa Clara resident, it is I'm so grateful that our council believes in inviting us. So let us do that. Let's open in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for this amazing town that you have given us to live in, for all of the dedicated employees of the city of Santa Clara, all of the division heads and management team, and thank you for all of our elected officials in this community. We know how much time, energy, and dedication it takes to guide our city forward. And we are so appreciative of the effort and work of this council and our mayor. We ask for your blessing upon their families and blessing upon all of the decisions that they have to make. Grant them wisdom beyond their capabilities to guide our city forward. We thank you for this. And I pray in the name of Jesus Christ, my Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate it. I'm Mayor Rick Rosenberg. We have present tonight a full council. Councilman Ben Shakespeare, Councilwoman Lena Mathis, Councilwoman Krista Hinton, Councilman Benny Drake, and Councilman Jarrett Wade are all present. We appreciate you being here. We'll begin the meeting with general citizen public comment. We do have new rules on public comment. I have not received any requests for public comment. Any been turned in, Ryan? Okay, we'll go ahead and proceed into the little orange slip back there when you come in and sign in is for general public comment. Yeah, if you want to get one really fast, let me give you the rules. You must be a resident of Santa Clara City. You have to fill out the public comment form, providing your name and address, submit to the city recorder prior to the start of the meeting. Public input shall not be allowed on any agenda item or pending land use application. Public input shall relate to city business, be respectful with no obscene or profane language, not contain attacks on any individuals. Members of the public who disrupt the meeting with undue applause, jeering, uninvited comments, or other protests will be asked to leave the council chambers. And written comments will be accepted at any time by residents of the city by either hand delivery or via the city's website. So, write fast. Thank you, Ryan. Denise Webster is a resident of Santa Clara City. Her question is, where do the citizens go for help? How can we be on the same team? Is that right, Denise? Come on up, Denise. You can address the council.
My name is Denise Webster. I live at 1485 Chapel Street. So my question, kind of that two-part question I have is, I've felt a lot of us against them. That it feels like it's a lot of us against, the city against the people, this against that. And it's really been bothering me because I feel like we're on the same team. And a lot of the things, especially the last meeting we were at, specifically for me, who lives in the historical district, everybody expressed that we all love the historical district. So I feel like we're kind of all on the same team, but it feels like we're not. And I've been trying to figure out why that is and what we can do to remedy that. And one of the things I observed at the last meeting was there were two developers present presenting their projects. And both developers several times mentioned, well, the city told me to do this, or the city told me this was the ordinance, or the city told me how I was supposed to do that. And so several times it was mentioned the city was helping them, the city was helping them, the city was helping them. I don't know who the city is. I assume if it's the city, then the taxpayers are paying that salary. So I don't know who it is, but I realized they were able to present their presentation, and they sat down and the council members began discussing. And during the course of the discussion, if the developer felt like maybe something wasn't clear or they wanted to add something, they could get up and they could comment and they could clarify, or they could, it kind of felt like if things weren't going their way, that they could get up and make a comment that would help sway things. On the other hand, if we felt something, we're not allowed to comment. We couldn't come back. We couldn't, like for example, on the agenda, it was read that I think it's on the general plan, section 4.5 states that any building in the historical district needs to be small and fit in with what surrounds it. The item on the agenda last week was a 35,000 square foot building, which is not small and did not fit in with the buildings that surrounded it. But that was passed, and I couldn't figure out how that was passed, except that there seems like there's other codes and ordinances that conflict with that one. Like, oh, it can be this building, or it can be a townhome, or it can be a 2-story or 3-story. So it seems like there's conflicts in there. And I started calling around because I've pulled up the codes and ordinances. I've been going through them. I've pulled up the historic plans. I've pulled up the general plans. I've been going through them ad nauseum. But I don't know, I don't know which one trumps the other when decisions are being made, like is something a priority or something? And so my question is, who do we, if the developers have somebody to go to explain these codes and ordinances, who do we have that we can go to? Who, because we're trying to understand this. I know years ago, we came to a meeting, we felt well prepared. We were cordial. We, wanted to present what we felt, that we wanted to protect. And the comments back to us were very condescending and, citing codes and ordinances and laws. And we looked like imbeciles. We looked like stupid peasants. And I vowed from then on, I would always read the codes and make sure that I came prepared after that, because I felt like we just didn't know. We don't know what, And so over the last month, I've been studying, but I don't know who we can go to. That's one of my questions. Who can we as citizens go to? And how can we feel like we're on the same team again? So that I don't love the conflict. I don't love that, it's hard. It's hard as a citizen, especially living in the historic district. And from someone who grew up here, who has roots here, and is really passionate about preserving it. It's really hard when we come and we feel like we're the bad guys. And that, and I want to change that. I don't think we're bad guys. I think we're good guys. I think we're trying to keep our town, every town, everywhere you go is just being inundated with big buildings, and we just want to protect it. And so if you can tell us who we can talk to and how we can resolve this so that we can come back together. Those are my questions.
You have the same resources as an applicant, a land use applicant at the city that you can come to. You can approach the city staff. Jim's over here tonight, the city planner.
Okay.
You can approach any of if your issues are relative to utilities or building, you have the same ability to approach the city staff that any applicant has in there. You can reach out to members of the city council as well, and you have, and presented some good information to us. And I'm fairly confident that they've read that information and tried to take that into account. So you have the same, I don't think any of us have put up a block wall and said, nobody can call me. People call me during the week. They send me emails. I get text messages. All that stuff is still there, but the professional staff, if your question is relative to ordinances or to codes or to standards, the professional staff that the city has would be who you would go to and approach with that.
So we can call and somebody would tell it, like, because I don't know. I don't know all of the gentlemen.
If you want to talk to the city planner, just call and ask for the
Okay.
city planner. They'll refer you to Jim
Okay.
McNulty. If it's a building code, they'll refer you to the building inspector, Cody
Okay.
Mitchell. If it's,
So it just depends on what we're looking
yeah,
at.
depends
So
on,
with the historic district and, the buildings and things in the historic district, who would we talk to? about
probably, Jim would be to start.
Okay.
A good one to talk to would be Lena. Lena's
Okay.
the city council person that's over the heritage committee that
Okay.
reviews everything in the
that?
district.
Okay,
So those people are approachable. They're not unapproachable for
Right.
any citizen. You can go
Okay.
reach out to them.
and so what about, do we, like, even the planning and zoning committee, are those people we need to call as well? Like, I'm trying
can.
to sort out in my head who's what.
I think, if it's a general question, like a question on the ordinance, you may even want to, talk to Matt.
Okay.
Depends on the question. The last thing we want to do is put the planning commissioners I mean, unpaid volunteers
Right, right,
out to where everybody they're afraid to go to church or to the grocery store.
right, right.
And so if it's a question relative to the code, to the ordinance, to a specific project, approach the city staff. They're paid to answer your questions that way.
Okay,
As far as, you know, providing comments and your opinion, I think emails is fine. I mean, we received a lot of emails and, you know, in the last month in particular, the email's blown up. And so, and that's fine. You can communicate that way.
so if something's in conflict, if there's two things that are in conflict with each other, how do you know which one rises to the top or not?
Mayor, can I make a couple comments on this? Because I've been involved in some of these recent meetings
Can
and
you,
there's.
I can't hear you very good. I'm so sorry. Matt.
Sure, yeah, this new microphone system doesn't like my voice for some reason, so
You might have to
Pretty
eat it.
loud.
I'll try to speak up. Just to emphasize what the mayor is talking about, you know, these are your elected officials. These are the people that are on the ballot when it's time to vote. And these are the people that are responsible to you as citizens when they make decisions. Others like the planning commissioners and the Heritage Commission, of course, I'm sure they're happy to hear, you know, constructive feedback from anyone, but they're not elected. They serve at the discretion of this body and the mayor. And so certainly be conscious of that. You know, I know Jim is protective of his planning commission because he knows that they give a lot of time for very little in return. So we always hope that the public would be respectful of their time. The other thing is, you know, you mentioned the city helping developers. That I've heard this a lot lately in different forms in public meetings and otherwise. Every developer that files an application with the city is, first of all, a property owner, and second, an applicant asking for something to be approved under the city ordinances. It's no different than say if you wanted to have a home business at your house and you apply for a conditional use permit to have a home business, you would be the property owner and you would be the applicant. And so there's this classification of someone as a developer, kind of as a bad word, you know, when someone buys a piece of property or owns a piece of property and they want to use it for something. Our entire system is predicated upon the idea that people should be able to use their property the way they want. And so the reason we have this whole process is because constitutionally, we have to have due process, we have to follow laws, and there are certain steps that have to happen before someone can put their property to certain uses. And so, you know, when you say the city is helping the developer, the city staff, when they work with a property owner on an application, they're doing the exact same thing that they would do with anyone who filed a land use application. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. The idea that there is some kind of benefit to the city for helping a developer or one property owner over another, there is simply nothing to that. They are an applicant. They're the primary contact on their application. Certainly the city is going to work with the applicant on their application. And then the public has opportunities to provide some input in the process. And that's what those public hearings are mainly for.
And I was just going to mention quickly, I see April Hickman here this evening, and we had the pleasure of working with her and her husband on Swoon. And they went through a very similar process. They had to go through a site plan review. They had to go to Heritage. They had to do a site plan review with both the planning commission and city council before they could make the changes to the building. So we treated April and Brian just like we treat any applicant.
Right.
So
Well,
that's
I
the main
appreciate
point
that.
I wanted to make is every land use application that comes through really is handled pretty much the same by the city, whether it's someone who wants to build a commercial building or someone who wants to have a business in their home. There's a process that it goes through, and there's multiple contacts, a lot of interaction with the applicant. That does not mean that the city is advocating for a developer. It just doesn't. So I wanted to make that clear, and that's not necessarily just in response to what you've said, Denise. It's something that I've heard multiple times recently. And in defense of the city and the staff, I just wanted to make that clear. But I don't want to, I want to emphasize what the mayor has said. You know, the mayor and the city council are available to receive feedback, to receive emails, to receive, you know, input from the public, both at public hearings and otherwise, and that's not going to change, but it has to be done in an orderly way. As to your question about when there's a conflict, I mean, that's pretty tough to answer unless you can point to something specific, and then we could look at what those ordinances are saying. If it's a conflict between an ordinance and a state law, that would be one answer. If it's a conflict between two ordinances, it would be probably a different answer. And then sometimes decisions just come down to not even necessarily what an ordinance says, but if it's a legislative decision, when a city council is making new law, as the legislative body, they can add to or modify what's in the existing ordinances. And effectively, when they're approving a general plan change or a zone change, that's what they're doing, is making new law. And so there's a lot of discretion given to them legally to do that. So so it's hard to talk about conflicts without knowing exactly what the
Right.
conflict
So
is.
if I'm finding these conflicts, like for example, you know, at the last meeting, and like I said, just that the buildings are supposed to be small, they're supposed to fit with what surrounds it. And it's 35,000 square feet. And you know, the general plan says this, the historic guidelines say that, well, there's a general plan, I found out, and then there's city laws and ordinances, which is a whole different historic whatevers, which are two separate things.
Yeah.
And sometimes the general plan's quoted and sometimes the ordinance is quoted, but then there's the historical that sometimes conflicts with the general. And so I've just been really confused and,
Yeah.
you know, trying to figure out what trumps what, you know, and I didn't know who to call. Like, I'm like, I don't, who's gonna explain this to me, you know?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And if the city council is aware of all those laws and zones and ordinances, then and if not, I'll bet whoever will love me in a while, I'm sure. But, you know, that's what I'm trying to figure out is I'm trying to just make it all make sense.
Yeah.
Because you know me, you all know me. You know why I'm here. You know, we're trying to do everything we can to protect what we have. And so that's my big question. I just didn't know where to go. This last week, I just didn't know where to turn.
What I would offer you as a general rule of thumb for that conflict question is generally the general plan and the historic guidelines are going to be kind of at the bottom in one sense, because those are guidelines. They're not necessarily specific to, you know, this property, and they're not specific to property lines and things like that. Whereas you go up a level and zoning is much more specific. It's parcel by parcel. It's much more detailed in what it allows and what it doesn't allow. And then you go up from there and you have other ordinances that may come into play other than zoning ordinances. And over all that, you have state law, which defines mostly the process, you know, and there's been questions come up recently about why don't we have a public hearing at the city council? Why do we do that at the planning commission? Well, the reason we do that is because the state law requires the public hearing to be held at the planning commission, just as an example.
Which makes no sense.
Well, you know, and we have legislators, we can take that up too,
Yeah.
with too. But, and then above that, you know, you have the state constitution, which is where the general principles come from about property rights and those kinds of things. And so that's kind of the rule of thumb. But again, it depends on the decision that's before the body that you're talking about. You know, the planning commission is generally a recommending body and doesn't make final decisions in most major land use decisions. But in certain other ones, they are the final decider. So it just really depends on the circumstances.
So I'll call you when I got a conflict, right?
Yeah, you know what, you're welcome to send me an email. That's usually the easiest way to get a hold of me. You know, I'm paid by the city on an hourly basis, and I know Brock wants to keep those costs under control, so he might say, let's let someone else respond to that, but I'm always happy to receive an email.
So, okay, so you're saying that the historical is probably, if the historical is lower on the totem pole than, you know, the zone.
The guidelines.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
historic
So
guidelines.
unless we help create some ordinances with the city to have in place, then we move up. And I mean, we have, I mean, like right now, I'm like, well, why do we have a historic district if we, you know, if it's just, if we're pirate laws, you know, but,
Well, let me offer this for some context, and we were actually just talking about this today. When I ran for city council back in 2005, the biggest issue that people were really upset about at the time was the fact that the city was looking at putting into place some binding restrictions on the historic district. You probably
oh, I
remember that.
remember it very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted that. Nobody wanted restrictions. Nobody wanted to have to go to the city to get an approval to paint their house, or,
Right.
you know, those were the kinds of examples that were used. And
Right.
so, you know, what we have now, the guidelines that we have, which are fairly weak, is kind of a reflection of some of that,
Why that?
you know, some of that
I agree
happened.
with
So,
you.
you know,
I agree.
it is
That's
what it
okay.
is.
I've been in contact with the state. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Okay, conflicts and disclosures, council. Do you have any conflict of interest that you need to disclose on anything that's on the agenda tonight? I do need to disclose that the firm that I'm employed by is involved with items number 2, 3, and 4 on the agenda. Also item number 6 and number 7. So does anybody else have any conflict to disclose? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into the working agenda. There are no public hearings scheduled for tonight. On the consent agenda, you have before you council approval of the claims and minutes from the July 12th regular city council meeting, the July 19th city council work meeting, and the claims through July 26th. On the calendar of events, our next regular city council meeting is scheduled for August 9th. The work meeting originally scheduled for August 16th has been canceled due to the UAMPS. The regular city council meeting will be on the 23rd, and then we have a combined special meeting with the Ivan City Council in this house at 5 o'clock on the 24th. That's the meeting that we have every 6 months with the Ivan City Council. We'd like to, I know he's not here tonight, James Call, we were going to recognize him for 10 years of service on the Planning Commission. He's not here, but I do want to make the announcement that we appreciate the work that he has done on the Planning Commission, and Jim has got him a nice gift and taken care of that, so we'll do that on the minutes. Anyway, council, I need, assuming that you can do all of this with one motion, I'd look for a motion to present or to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Krista and a second by Jarrett to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there any question on that motion, council? Seeing none, it is a money item. We'll do roll call vote. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Under general business, item B1 is a presentation regarding the Washington County School District Tax Initiative. Steve Dunham is here. Welcome, Steve. Introduce your team.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come. This is Brent Bills, our business administrator for the school district. And we have Mr. Dave Sterling, who's a board member for the school board. And we're grateful for this opportunity to come and present what we're doing. The property tax notices are arriving at home this week, along with our mailer that we sent out to every home. That's the same mailer that Mr. Bills is passing out right now to yourselves in the audience. And we just wanted to discuss the thought and the planning that has gone into this initiative and what we're trying to accomplish. Historically, school districts have had to bond to pay for growth. We're a growing community. This year, Washington County School District is anticipating we'll have between 600 and 700 new students in our school district. We ended last year, the 2022-23 school year, with 36,600 children. And we're going to be starting this year, we anticipate, with 37,300. And so with the growth that we have continually, we need to plan for buildings and construction. Historically, the funding opportunities provided to us are to bond, where we go out to the taxpayers, we ask them to approve a bond, and then we raise taxes to take out those loans and pay for the new construction. About 6 years ago, we began planning for a new way to do that. We began restructuring the debt at the school district so that we could flatten out those peaks and valleys in the property tax notice. As we take out new bonds and taxes go up, they're up here, and then as we pay them off, they slowly come down as the debt levy decreases. And then we have to take out a new bond. So what our proposal is that we would have a consistent tax rate that would go forward from the 2023 year. And that would allow us to begin paying off the bonds and recapturing some of that additional funds from the taxpayers and put that into a savings where we can begin to pay cash for all future construction. That saves our taxpayers in excess of $10.6 million. That's what we paid in interest alone last year on the loans the school district has. It will take us a period of time to pay off all of the remaining debt. We anticipate that it will take about 10 years to pay off all of the remaining debt the school district has, at which time the Board of Education will revisit that tax rate and see if it can be lowered even further. But we anticipate that we would never have to ask taxpayers for another tax increase through bonding again for new construction. And that's a significant thing. What we're saying is what you paid in 2022 is what you'll pay in 2023 going forward. So it's a budget that you can plan on, and it's a budget we can live within, and it will provide for the needs of our rapidly growing school district. If we didn't do this, and then we maintained the traditional method, we would have had to have bonded in 2022 for a bond for new construction and for a replacement building that we're considering in the upcoming years. We anticipate that over the next 12 years, we would have to bond for upwards of $700 million to pay for new construction with the growth projections we have in the district. And so these are some of the things we're trying to work through right now. And that's why our school board is going forward with the Truth in Taxation Initiative this coming August 6th at 6 p.m. at Dixie High School. 7th. Thank you. August 7th at 6 p.m. at Dixie High School. Now, with that being said, I've gone over this and tried to simplify it quite a bit. I would love to answer any specific questions you have about this initiative, or if you had an opportunity to look at your tax notice and you have questions, I'd be happy to address those. And I have the expertise of Mr. Bills here with me to back me up. No questions at all?
So are you proposing to freeze the rate? Maybe explain that, because.
Mr. Bills, okay.
So, yeah, explain the whole process on
No,
that.
we're not freezing the rate.
That was a poor choice of words on my part.
What we're doing is we're making it so that people will pay slightly less year over year on the property taxes from 22 to 23 on average, right? Now, we all know is some people's homes get assessed differently and everything else. Some people pay a little bit more, some people pay a little bit less. But overall, we'll collect a little bit less on the same homes since then. And then as property tax or values go up, that rate will actually slide down with a certified tax rate. The board doesn't have the authority to hold the tax rate forever. It will drop every single year as soon as the certified tax rate drops. It'll go up, the whole value actually drops.
Okay.
Does that answer that?
Yeah.
So the way we're doing this is by combining our debt service levy into our capital levy, which is why we have to show it as a tax increase to the taxpayers because of that change in the tax levies. And so the state requires that we show it as a tax increase, even though over last year, on average, most homes in Washington County should show a slight decrease.
So basically, all your capital funds needed now go into the property tax rate. What's needed to collect right through there. Is that correct?
Yes, so what we were using to pay for debt is going to go into the capital levy. We're going to use that to pay to build the new buildings going forward. So instead of paying interest, we'll be gaining interest on the money. Because, we get all the money usually in 2 months a year, most of it 2 months a year, December, November, December timeframe. And it will go out over the course of the year for building buildings, we'll be able to collect interest off of that over that period of time, so paying the really high interest rates.
It says in the paper there's 4 total levies. You'll be combining 2 of them. What are going to be the other 2 remaining? What are those other levies? I'm just not familiar.
The other 2 levies deal with our operations side of the school district. So those go into what we call Fund 10, which is what we pay teachers out of. There are employee expenses and our benefits, supply money, heating and cooling, all those types of things. And this goes into Fund 32, which is capital projects, which can only be used for construction or facility or those equipment types of things.
And is there one more levy after that? You said there's 4 total, right?
The 2 of them go into Fund 10, and that's the board local levy.
Oh,
and the
okay.
voted levy.
Okay.
And then we have the capital levy, which goes into what we call Fund 32, which is our capital. We have Fund 31, which is our debt service levy. So our Fund 31 levy is going down to 0. We'll pick up the difference in the capital levy, and then we'll make the debt service payments out of the capital levy, and we'll build buildings out of the capital levy.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
And you said that the capital levy is restricted?
Yes, highly restricted.
Okay. Is there a reason why those levies aren't broken out rather than just the local tax so the residents can see what those allocations are?
That's, again, state legislature. They
Okay.
decide how the levies are broken out and shown on the tax sheet. When I put them in, they're put in as individual levies. I could show that to you.
And that's in our budget as well. We're showing our budget.
They all broken out. But this is just how they put it on this particular document they sent out.
Does that put you behind on any of the schools that you have planned coming up? Are you still on schedule?
There's 3 of them that we're looking at right now. The next 3 is we need another elementary school. Our Hurricane Elementary and Three Falls Elementary School are very full right now, and Hurricane's actually growing quite rapidly. And so we're going to need a school out there somewhere, Dixie Springs area, or we own a property back behind the Walmart. So those are 2 of the school things we're looking for an elementary school. And then most people know Stone Canyon Middle School is not the best type of construction for a school, and it's got a lot of maintenance costs are just astronomical in that school, so it's going to need to be replaced. And then 700 South on looks like it's going to get a new freeway off ramp, on ramp in St. George, and it looks like 400 east Flood Street. They applied for a grant to put an underpass under the freeway there. It's a Connecting Communities grant. And if they get that, that corner is going to become very, very, very busy. And we've got the JROTC leading the seminary building across the street, across the 700 South. So we'd like to, there's some of the vocational facilities that are original with the building. And so we want to build a new place for those and the JROTC right there on the corner. So those kids don't have to cross the street anymore. So those are the 3 things we're looking at in the next 5 years.
So that does not put us behind.
You're still on
It
schedule.
does not.
Thanks.
Any other questions we can respond to for you?
Questions, council?
We can call you and meet with you one-on-one
Oh,
to have you
definitely.
assist us with the math?
Yes, definitely. I can walk you through it. My office number is 986-5201.
Thanks.
What happens again in the past when you needed the buildings, you went out and put out a bond, got the capital to build them.
Correct.
This spreads it out over
So-
10 years. Is this a 10-year look?
So we actually looked at it for the next 12 years, laid out what we think the buildings will need are based on growth in the area. We don't have specific locations. We just have, as an aggregate, as a district, this is how we're growing. This is how we're growing first grade, second grade, third grade, moving those grades forward. And then, okay, we're going to need an elementary school here. This is where we're gonna be next high school, next middle school, next intermediate school. And then we're looking at what construction costs are right now to build. They've gone through the roof. And so the question is, you know, what are we gonna pay? And we've put that out over time, what the construction costs we believe will be over time, and inflation that, and said, all right, what are we gonna need to build, what are we gonna need to build it? And that's been part of everything that we modeled together. And then doing all that, we can make this work. Part of it is the savings on the interest and gaining some interest. And then there's a slight lull happening right now in new construction. Just building a cone site, we finished the CT High, which is really going to help us out because the CT High takes half the capacity of a high school or over half the capacity of a high school, but it costs a fraction of what high school costs to build. And so that's going to help us out quite a bit. We've got this little cliff where that's been working its way through the school district where the upper grade levels going to look like this and the lower grade levels look like this. It just drops down 1 year. It's slowly working through our district. That's in the secondary schools and middle schools right now, hitting them. And so that's giving us a little bit of relief at the same time. So by restructuring our debt over the next 10 years, we've been able to create the debt cliff this year, where normally we wouldn't have done that. We would just kept layering it on, layering it on, layering it on. But we found the ability to create this debt cliff and then use that difference to start building buildings going forward. So in the long run, taxpayers should pay a lot less money to get these buildings. It allows us to plan and stick within budget.
And what was the total? You said it earlier. I missed it. The interest paid on the bond.
In 2022, we paid $10.6 million interest on our bonds.
And that's the number you're trying to save in the future.
We would love that to go away and actually be able to generate additional interest. In reality, that interest number would have got a lot higher because we were borrowing a lot of those bonds when interest rates were a lot lower. And so we were getting things at 1.5%, 2%. And right now, if we were to go off the bond, we're looking at 3.5%, 4%, 8.5%.
But you won't realize those savings for several years, right? Because you've got $190 million in debt.
It'll slowly come off. So we'll slowly see those savings. But it definitely will attract more debt and then more interest.
Any other questions, council?
We're presenting this. We've been going around to all different cities. We held on-site meetings and everything else. And if, as individuals or as a city council, we'd love to have an endorsement or a letter of support or something, if that's possible. If it's not, we understand that as well. But we'd like to invite you to this endeavor to try and get debt free and do it. Well, the federal government hasn't been able to do it. But
Okay. You're bet. Thank you, guys. Appreciate all you do. Item number B2, discussion and action to consider a general plan amendment application for property at the intersection of Pioneer Parkway and the future extension of Red Mountain Drive. Properties have been legally subdivided and are known as lots 1, 2, and 3 of the Silverado Commercial Subdivision. Silverado Development LLC is proposing a general plan amendment from Main Street Commercial MSC and open space to mixed use residential MUR for lots 1 and 2, and Main Street Commercial MSC and open space OS to Main Street Commercial MSC for lot 3, and approve ordinance 23-18 or 2023-18. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me through the microphone or not? Okay, we adjusted it this evening. We're still having some issues with it, so I'll just try to project. So the mayor indicated the application, it is a general plan amendment application. The group is Silverado Development LLC, and it includes 3 properties which have been legally subdivided. You may recall previously, when you came to some meetings last summer, that this property here to the east was also included, where they were going to have a pickleball facility with a chicken and pickle. And so that is no longer being proposed with the application. This particular piece has been sold to IHC for a medical facility to be put at that location. And that will be a separate application. IHC is going to have to make application and come to the city to go through a process through public hearings to allow for that site to be located. So what they're proposing now is a total of 3 lots, which have been legally subdivided. And I'm just talking about it conceptually as per the site plan, because what is before you this evening and before the council this evening is the general plan amendment. They will have to come back for a rezoning of property at a later date with a full project plan with additional studies and work to rezone the property. This is the first step in the process to amend the general plan. And so lots 1, 2, and 3 were legally subdivided. The applicant is proposing amendment from Main Street Commercial and Open Space to just mixed-use residential for lots 1 and 2. And so the lot 1 area is here that I have with the cursor, and the lot 2 is here. Lot 1 includes townhomes, a townhome unit with toy storage or garages as well for hobbyists. Lot 2 includes an apartment project. And then lot 3, they're asking for a change from Main Street Commercial and Open Space to just Main Street Commercial. They would propose to locate 3 commercial buildings, kind of office retail type use. They're showing a plaza here as well as a stairway to Harmon's for connection, and then a reciprocal access to and from their property to the Harmon site as well. And then you can see access here off of Pioneer Parkway to the future Red Mountain Drive extension. So that is what's being proposed on this particular property, and we'll see that later on. Now, what I want to go to is just our general plan land use map and give you the reason why they're here this evening. As you can see here, this is our general plan land use map, and the properties in question are right here. So we have a little bit of open space on the west side of the future Red Mountain Drive extension, as shown in green here. And then we have a bit of it in the Tuacahn Wash as well. So it is pretty limited on these sites, these 3 properties. Now, the other property that IHC will come, that's what we've been told, and do a general plan amendment. You can see quite a bit of open space there, and then some open space and some environmentally sensitive type areas. So that one will be discussed at a later date. What we're referring to tonight is just this area. The general plan map doesn't show the exact dimensions of it, but it is this area that you see that is in the purplish maroon, or purple, not maroon, but purple type color as a Main Street commercial with a little bit of open space. And so in working with City Legal Counsel, we've determined that the general plan amendment is needed for the subject property prior to pursuing a revised property rezoning and project plan. This allows for a clear and transparent record of the property entitlement before they move forward on a rezoning. Notices were sent out to property owners within 300 feet of the property prior to the public hearing. And that public hearing did occur with the Planning Commission on July 13th of 2023. So approximately 2 weeks ago tomorrow. We did not receive any responses about the application. However, the City Council will recall that several residents came out to the public meetings last year in August of 2022, and then again in the fall. And so now I'll go back to the proposed concept plan, which you can see here. And I just want to go through some of our general plan requirements and consideration for you, the council, prior to making a decision. It includes 2 land use designations. And so the description for the Main Street commercial to remain on lot 3. So this is the prime commercial frontage along Pioneer Parkway. It states the following: predominantly commercial uses on the ground floor, including uses such as stores, restaurants, and offices, with residences and or offices on the 2nd and 3rd floor. They're not proposing that. They're proposing office and retail space for this acreage. Now, the description for the mixed-use residential for lots 1 and 2, which is the lot here to the north, and then this property in the middle, it states the following: the mix of uses is mostly residential in the form of townhomes, multi-unit buildings, but also might include small lot single family. MUR may include small retail stores, coffee shops, and offices at intersections with collector streets. Second floor residences or offices could also be allowed. Now, the application for tonight, the general plan, there's a minimal amount of open space included in the subject properties. And city staff, the intent is to clean up the land use map and remove these areas from the general plan if the council decides to allow that, allowing the applicant to proceed. Now, the general plan states the mixed use designation, section 3.4.2 encourages a mix of residential, retail, and employment uses that are typically segregated. And a policy that supports that states that all mixed use development will be accompanied by attractive landscaping, pushing buildings to the street or right away, pedestrian oriented landscape and street trees. Those are things that would be considered at a later date if the applicant moves forward. Section 4.6 of the general plan includes the Pioneer Parkway Retail Core and states the following. The Pioneer Parkway Retail Core is ideal for future mixed-use retail development. It is located adjacent to two major streets near a large park, a school, a firehouse, a part of the city's proposed trail network. Public input from residents strongly supported creating future retail centers. This includes stores that form a continuous shopping street connected by wide shaded sidewalks with benches, decorative paving plazas for gathering, and convenient on-street parking. In addition, when Santa Clara North is developed, a significant customer base will live within walking distance. And then we have an objective for that Pioneer Parkway Retail Core that states the following. Ensure the flow of traffic in a major transportation and corridor while providing significant retail and employment opportunities in a pedestrian-oriented center. And then we have section 6 of our general plan that includes economic development and states the following. Economic development objective, attract new businesses and retail to Santa Clara to broaden and increase the sales tax base and to provide increased local employment opportunity. And the policy 6.1 that supports that states the city supports development that proposes mixed use land uses to help diversify the city's income and maintain city services. So as far as state code considerations go, Utah Code section 10.9A 408 talks about requirements for a general plan amendment and a public hearing. It requires one public hearing. We've met that requirement and we meet the state statute. Our city staff recommendation is as follows. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 13th of 2023. A motion was made to recommend approval to the City Council and passed on a unanimous vote of 5-0. City staff recommends that the City Council review the submitted general plan amendment to determine if the application is complete. If the application is determined to be complete, City staff would recommend that the City Council consider the application subject to the findings, and we have 5 findings that are outlined in your staff report. And then we do have one condition, and I'm going to read that into the record. Condition number 1, that this amendment is approved subject to the approval of a zone change consistent with the applicant's presentation within 1 year of the date of approval of this amendment. And if not approved within 1 year, the land use designation shall revert back as if this amendment had not been approved. And that's been explained to the council recently based on code amendments and recent changes to city ordinance and code. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Rosenberg, and the applicant, Julian Stemmer, is here if he'd like, or if the council would like him to speak to the item as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Does the applicant want to make any addition to the staff presentation?
Thank you, Jim. I really appreciate it. I just quickly want to make one little addition. As you all know, we were out here last summer in the fall, and our biggest problem facing this project and a project plan that we had at the time of the zone change attached to the project plan was the neighborhood and certain city council members not really loving the pickleball facility, and neighbors especially not really liking the gas station. We had several meetings with the neighborhood. We had several meetings with the city, and we feel like we really resolved this issue 2 weeks ago when we had the public hearing. After the public hearing, we had the same individuals that very strongly had opinions last year about certain things they didn't like in the project coming to us telling us that they're very happy with the project now, and also voicing that they're excited about it and happy that we made the changes that they felt are necessary to accept the project and feel like they can move forward in peace. That's my only comment. If there's any questions, be happy to answer.
Questions for the applicant, council? Thank you, Julian. Council, you have any discussion on behalf of the council concerning the general plan amendment request?
So Jim, can you pull up the general plan again?
Sure.
So basically, we're maintaining the magenta on Pioneer Parkway and kind of just spreading the brown down into the magenta. Is that
Correct.
kind of what we're doing right now?
Correct, for lots 1 and 2 versus lot 3.
Okay.
And then we have this small area of open space that's shown on the west of the future extension of Red Mountain Drive. The applicant is providing open space within their plan.
Okay. So I guess from my perspective, I'm glad we're keeping the magenta on Pioneer Parkway. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then it's just what happens behind that. And I can see, you know, maybe we get a big shopping center or something there, but I don't know if that's really possible or not. So I can see this general plan amendment working and being kind of, it's already kind of a busy area and next to a big grocery store with trucks driving in. And so I could see this making sense.
Any other comments, council?
I am generally on board with this. I think it meets the general plan really, really well. I have one concern, and I know this isn't the zone change request, but I have one concern that trying to do it as a mixed use project, the existing lots or phase 1 and phase 2 that you have on there, lots 1 and lots 2, are already zoned for residential. And so I have a concern with the changing of it to potentially, I'm just letting you know, to a PDC.
And Jim, please correct me if I'm wrong, or Matt.
No.
With the PDR zone that we have right now, obviously we would have to come in and get the site plan and project plan approved. And we could do phase 1 and phase 2 as is, but I think we would need the density bonus.
I can tell you the concern I have
Okay.
is it will limit the number of units you can do unless there's an affordable housing component.
As far as I understand, with the PDC zone and the acreage that we have, we are within the minimums that we don't have to have an affordable housing.
Yeah.
Component to it. I think we would only need that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so as far as the density bonus, that's correct, that the PDC zone does not require a density bonus approval. It allows you to go to the full 12 units per acre.
Right.
I think what
My
Councilman Mathis's concern is that the PDC also doesn't impose the affordable housing requirement on the apartment complex, which would be imposed if it was in the PDR zone.
Right.
Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct. And so I'm just letting you know that come the zoning request, that will be a concern I will have.
Okay,
'Cause
so basically your concern is the PDR would require some kind of component, and going from PDR to PDC, we don't need that component. And that is
Correct.
kind of looking forward like a month or two when we're
Right.
back. That's
And-
something that is in the back of.
Right. And the concern I have is because you have separated the parcels. So in reality, you could take that parcel and sell that parcel just as a commercial project. And the intent of our ordinance was to not have large projects unless they were mixed use or allowed for affordable housing. So I'm just putting that out there so that you know that concern.
Thank you.
So when we were dealing with it previously, Matt and I were just talking, Councilmember Mathis. We were working on a development agreement previously with Dave Hunter for the overall project. And at that time, we had talked about PDR and PDC previously. Dave had previously said he would try to do 10% of the units as affordable. and I believe maybe Councilmember Waite and some others had some discussions with him. I know the pickleball facility and the sports themed restaurant have probably gone away and something else is coming in. But we still were working on a development agreement, and it's my understanding, Matt, that we would have a development agreement for this because we had a draft. And now with the project changing, they'll have to update that as we go through the rezoning and project plan process. There'll be a development agreement that goes with it.
Yeah, we do have a draft development agreement. Given the changes to the project, I can't really say whether what we have drafted is going to reflect what's brought before you though. So that's just something we'll have to work through in the next steps.
The idea was at least 10 units of affordable at 80% of AMI. Now, that wasn't going to be mandated through Utah Housing. It was going to be done by you guys or your owners association, but that's something we'll have to address at the next step. So.
Any other questions, comments, council? Or the comments, I would look for a motion.
I move that we approve the site plan for mixed-use building located at 3098 Santa Clara, oh, wrong one, sorry.
That's wrong one.
Wow. I move that we approve the general plan amendment application for property at the intersection of Pioneer Parkway and future extension of Red Mountain Drive. And approve ordinance 2023-18.
Second.
Got a motion by Krista and a second by Lena to approve the proposed general plan amendment application for the property at the intersection of Pioneer Parkway and future extension Red Mountain Drive as presented, including the condition that was in the presentation.
Including the conditions, yes.
Second.
And also approve ordinance 2023-18. Council, any question on that motion?
Do we want to specify in the motion that lots 1 and 2 are going to be like exactly which lots end up which color on the map, basically?
Yeah, just the way that it was presented.
Yeah,
described in this.
It's in there.
application.
Very good.
Other questions, council? Says an ordinance, roll call vote. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Denny? Aye. Jarrett?
Aye.
The ayes have it 5-0. Thank you, council. Item number B3, discussion and action to consider site plan approval for a mixed-use building located at 3098 Santa Clara Drive. Justin Anderson and Stephen Beasley are the applicants. Jim?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm just going to pull the site plan up. Give me just a moment. Go. Okay, thank you. The applicants, Stephen Beasley is here, and I don't know if Justin's here in person or on the Zoom call. Okay, so they are requesting site plan approval. So just taking a look at the site plan here, I have that item before you. You can see that they're proposing a new building on the site. The site is just under ½ an acre in size. The building has been positioned on the site, pushing the building forward to within 20 feet of property line, which is allowed in the historic district mixed use zone. You can see the walkability that they're trying to employ or proposing with the project. You've got a 5-foot sidewalk up front. You've got a park strip area. And then on the southeast end, you do have the sycamore tree that would remain in place. They've been working with our parks department to make sure that the tree would remain. We believe that tree is 25 to 30 feet tall. I'm not sure. Maybe the applicant would know. But you can see the access that's proposed off of Santa Clara Drive on the west end of the site. It's a 26-foot driveway, a private driveway. And that would provide access to the 4 apartments proposed. They're proposing a 2-car garage, covered parking. Ordinance requires two parking spaces, 1 uncovered and 1 covered. So they are proposing 2-car garages, a standard 20 by 20 garage, 400 square feet. And then you see 12 parking spaces that have also been provided for the office retail use as proposed up front. That use is just under 3,000 square feet. The townhome apartments range in size from 1,382 square feet to 1,424 square feet. And you can see those. And then you have the parking in the back, again, with the 26-foot drive aisle in between, landscaping to buffer the project, and then a dumpster enclosure. A solid dumpster enclosure with a metal gate with some more landscaping to soften the area. I'm going to go to the building elevations next. Well, we'll do this briefly. You can see the residential apartment here. Let's see if we go to the next page. Yeah. So this is the main floor level. So you see the lease space just under 1,300 square feet, and then the 2-car garages in front, and then these living areas. That the first floor is small, just over 500 square feet. And then you go to the second level, and they're proposing a second level of 800 square feet, 8 to 850 and a little bit more. You can see 2 bedrooms over the proposed garages below with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. And then this lease space is just under 1,500 square feet on the top floor. So the building under roof is approximately 9,900 square feet. Actually 9,939 square feet. So the footprint's about 4,500 square feet. So based on the lot size, these are some building elevations here. And I'm gonna tell you which elevation is which by the way I understand it. So it does say east elevation. This would be the north elevation or the rear of the building. The west elevation is the south elevation, which faces Santa Clara Drive. The north elevation is actually the west elevation. And then the south elevation would be the east elevation that faces the SWN project. So we'll go to the perspective drawings. I actually prefer these. They're kind of nice to look at, the 3D views. So this is what you would see here if you were standing in front of the building off of Santa Clara Drive. They have some nice street furniture and some elements to invite pedestrian access in the area. The eastern elevation, you see a small courtyard area for each unit proposed. The west elevation, that is the garage, and then the floor space above the building. And then a front perspective again as well. And so as far as building materials, I can run through that briefly. The building materials, they were reviewed by the Heritage Commission on June 15th of 2023. The Heritage Commission did recommend consideration of approval, or that the Planning Commission consider approving it for the proposed building. With the final building materials, as discussed, coming back to the meeting, and what was talked about is a brick being a tan brick color. So this brick right here, originally at the front, the entry here that you see, and then these areas, these entries to the units themselves via the courtyard, was a gray, white type of brick. They've come back and suggested a tan brick, a second option. That's something that will be reviewed or taken back to the Heritage Commission. And then the courtyard area with the wrought iron metal fencing. And then the final materials, the stone, the larger stone that's proposed will be reviewed by the Heritage. They're going to actually bring in samples that they can see and feel and touch, which I think is good. We talked about the site plan layout. Let me just talk about the materials. It includes the hardy board, both vertical and horizontal siding, large stone on the business front facade, brick veneer, cultured field stone, stucco, some limited wood sidings, and a standing seam metal roof. The proposed building colors include white hardy board siding, white stucco, cream colored stone, tan brick, and a dark brown wood siding metal roofing. The flat roof style with the parapet is similar to the Merck building design directly across the street. And then additionally, the residential portion of the building behind the office includes both a 412 and 912 pitch roof. I'm going to go back to the site plan. The site plan does include 12 parking spaces, including 1 ADA space, which does meet our parking code, chapter 1732. And then, as I mentioned earlier, for dwelling units, 2 parking spaces are required, 1 covered, 1 uncovered. They comply with that by providing 2 covered parking spaces and a garage for each one. We've been discussing our city ordinance on water efficiency, landscaping and conservation standards. We'll work with them to make sure they meet such standards. Within our code, outdoor lighting is discussed in chapter 1736.070. It talks about a maximum light standard height of 16 feet using indirect hooded light sources. Additionally, all outdoor lighting shall not adversely impact surrounding businesses or residential uses. All outdoor lighting shall be shielded and directed downward to avoid light spill. We're not anticipating light standards with this. There'll probably be, mounted lights that are mounted to the building themselves. The dumpster enclosure is required, and we mentioned the section of code 17.66, which would be required. Project signage, this is in the historic district mixed use. You did see an area on the building that would allow for a sign or 2. All signage will be reviewed by the Heritage Commission before a sign permit is granted. And then we do have 2 project items as discussed in section 1774, the historic district mixed use zone. The first item, 0.030 of city code indicates that 2-family dwellings such as a duplex, twin home, or townhome are a permitted use. This section of code also allows for the Planning Commission to determine other permitted uses with input from the Heritage Commission. The Heritage Commission, Planning Commission, and city staff are comfortable with the 4 residential apartment units as proposed for the project. These will be long-term rental units. They are not short-term rental units. The conditions of approval do address that. And then the second item is the proposed mixed-use office building has been designed to fit in with other historic structures in the immediate vicinity. This section of code 1774.040 indicates that the building height shall be an average height of adjacent units on the same block unless a greater height is approved by the Planning Commission upon recommendation from the Heritage Commission. Generally, height has been limited to approximately 25 feet in the historic district. However, there are several structures that exceed this height in the historic district. The applicant is proposing a building height. Let me go back to the building elevation. So you can see this. The applicant is proposing a height of 29 feet to the top of the parapet. So that's right here. If you're looking at this view, which is the west elevation, 29 feet to the top of that parapet. And that's a false front similar to what the Merck has across the street, which allows for, if they chose to do it, rooftop mechanical equipment to be screened and set down in. And then this portion of the building, it would be at, the height would be 27.8 to the peak of the roof for the residential units. So you have a little bit of height here at 27.8, and then a little bit more here at 29, but then it comes back down to a very similar height down below the parapet at the 27.8, mentioned the back of the residential portion of the building as well. And so city staff is comfortable with the proposed height of the building, as the building is designed to blend in with the historic district. Additionally, the Heritage Commission, Planning Commission were in favor of the proposed building height. Public notices, no comments are not required for a site plan, as this is a public meeting. Notices, the actual agenda was posted on the city website and in multiple public locations. Not received any comments. We do meet Utah State Code section 52.4.202 for a site plan review. And our recommendation is as follows. The Planning Commission held a public meeting on July 13th, 2023, and recommended site plan approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the City Council consider granted site plan approval for the 3098 Santa Clara mixed-use building, subject to the 10 conditions as outlined in the staff report. The applicant and architect Steve Beasley is here this evening. Mayor, if the council would like to ask him questions about the design, but that's what we have for you this evening on this item.
Any questions for Jim, council?
I think I do. I'm looking at the actual site plan review in our code. And it says as part of the site plan, they have to show their existing conditions on the site. And it looks like they've done everything except for, it says number 9, new buildings require a soils geotechnical report to be submitted. A soils report is not required for existing buildings. Do we have that as part of this review?
I don't know. Cody, do we have a soils report from them yet, or is that what they're
Or
looking
does
to
that need to be
submit?
added as a condition, or how does that work?
No, we have not received that yet.
That would come in with their construction drawings when they submit them. But we're asking that they go, or it could come sooner, but we're asking that they go back to Heritage Commission with those full-size material samples before the construction drawings are submitted as per the comments and conditions. I did not include a drawing. They did have a black and white drawing originally of just kind of the existing site, but it's just an empty
Just
vacant
a-
lot.
yeah.
I just submitted the site plan package, which has been, made for presentation this evening.
Jim, is there privacy walls around the exterior perimeter of the project proposed?
No, there is an existing fence along the west property line, the single family home in this location. A new fence was put up a year or so ago, both in the front, side and rear yard. So there is a fence that goes a good portion. It's a picket vinyl type of fence that goes through here. The Swoon project to the west is open. We had parking over there on that west side and left that open, a natural type look. And that's the thinking here, that there would be a landscape buffer with some trees and then the private patio courtyard areas to help soften that, just leave the space open. The code doesn't require that generally like it does for the PDR, but for the historic district mixed use, there aren't specific requirements about perimeter fencing.
And this next one may be a question for the applicant. Since there isn't a perimeter wall, what are the thoughts pertaining to drainage coming from the north that drains down onto that site from the vacant parcel, and then how that be mitigated, and then how will the increase in stormwater runoff from the site be mitigated? Are they doing underground detention, or what are they proposing to do?
There have been discussions in TRC about utilities and that type of stuff. We'll invite the applicant to come up and address those there.
Steve or Jared, or you brought a posse with you, Steve?
So I'm Steve Beasley from Desert Edge. I'm going to let Jared answer that one because he's the civil engineer on this project.
Oh, I love to stump Jared once in a while.
So I think what we'd probably anticipate is having some sort of a storm drain system out there on the north side. Probably a couple catch basins back there. And we'll likely have some, as long as the geotech report, it shows that it's feasible, we'll probably have some sort of underground basins or collection system, just due to the size restrictions we've got. So that's what we typically do on a commercial that's got a lot of asphalt. Oh.
Yeah, just the whole thing.
Yeah, so sorry, we'd probably do a couple of catch basins within the north parking
Can
lot.
you hear that? Still can't hear it? Pull it up right next to your lips.
Better?
That's it.
I don't want to eat it, man.
Get it wet like a rock.
Eat the mic.
There we go. So we'll put probably a couple of catch basins back there in the north property, in the north parking lot. And then as far as LID requirements or retention, we'll likely have an underground chamber system. It'll probably be located in that roadway for the access near the commercial building in the front there. So probably it's what we typically do in cases where there's lots of asphalt, not a big area for a detention basin or something like that. That'd be the general idea.
Dustin, is there a storm drain in Santa Clara Drive?
Yeah.
Okay. So they'd have the opportunity to discharge their retention into that.
The option of some LID detention to pick up some of it.
Second question was,
Hey, real quick, Rick, in one of the meetings we had right before we got approved for Heritage Commission, I believe they told us that this project was small enough that they can do storm runoff into the gutter for.
yeah, you may not have to meet the detention because it's less than half an acre.
Yeah, and that's what I understood from them. So
It's-
that's what you see, that gutter going down and discharging into the driveway.
It's more without the wall, you're subject to flooding from offsite. And how that can be mitigated, pass through the property is probably my bigger concern. The other one is the solid waste enclosure. Looks like you're proposing a front entry and then they back out of the driveway. And then they have to back on to Santa Clara Drive.
Yeah.
Any concerns with that? Santa Clara drives 19,000 cars a day.
Depends on if I-15's though.
I don't think the ADT is that high.
I guess the question that could come up would be, the question that could come up would be, is the dumpster necessary? Because you could have single collection, garbage cans that could be brought to the front for the townhomes, and then depending on how much waste the commercial use is, that could be something that could be looked at too.
What about the businesses? You've got two levels, two businesses, one on the ground floor, one on the top. My concern is, and we've seen this happen, a dumpster appears over time, magically appears on site, and then we don't have a dumpster enclosure.
Gotcha.
So I would prefer an enclosure because we've got a mixed use project here.
There is an opportunity to move the dumpster in the front, but I think we don't want the dumpster out on the street.
I think it'd just be something you may want to talk to the solid waste district about, just to facilitate, make sure that the design is going to be accessible. My fear is the garbage truck backing on Santa Clara Drive.
I think that's a good one to look at for sure.
Council, have got the applicant and his agent before you, or I guess they're both agents for the applicant. Professionals for the applicant. Any questions?
I have one for Jim.
Mm-hmm.
So does this site plan meet the 700 square foot main floor requirement?
I have the same
Am I reading
question.
this right? The floor area in new development shall be a minimum of 700 square feet living space per unit?
I've got it highlighted right here.
Yeah, it's in 1774, 130, C4.
No.
And it says, unless specifically approved by the planning commission and city council as part of a mixed use dwelling already existing on the property. So that's what I was going to ask about, because there's
Yeah.
nothing existing on the property.
There's nothing existing now. The units themselves are rather large for apartments total. So we have approximately 500 to 550 square feet of living area on the ground floor with a 400 square foot garage. And then up above, typical to like you'd see with a townhome, we have 800 to 850 square foot plus with 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. So the ground floor, if we counted the garage and the living space, is 950 square feet, but the living area is only 5 to 550. And then we have the lease space. So it is a mixed use product.
I don't know, that's Matt, can you maybe interpret that line for us?
What item is it again?
It's subparagraph C4 in 1774, 130. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
You guys hear Matt? When you have your computer screen up like that, you
Yeah.
block your mic.
I know, even when I move it, it doesn't seem to make much
Got to
difference.
use your big boy voice.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward as Jarrett and others noted. Says no residential dwelling shall have less than 700 square feet of main floor living area unless specifically approved by the planning commission and city council as part of a mixed use dwelling already existing on the property.
It's that last part that gets me.
Yeah,
What item is it?
C4.
And I wonder, as I read through that, is that a way to kind of limit density in the downtown, that the floor space has to be at least 700 square feet?
1774.
Easy to do.
Because, and my other question is,
You got this.
there is no limit on the density in this zone, right?
There's not.
I couldn't find anything anywhere. So is this the one catch-all that at least keeps it to a moderate density in that zone, or am I reading that wrong?
Well, part of the purpose of the zone, it said, was to approve higher density residential uses integrated into the overall mixed use development.
One thought on that, I wonder if that limit is it making the assumption that one of the floors would be, so you'd have like commercial on the top or the bottom? and only a single floor would be residential. That may be the source of where that language comes from. Because I think often mixed use, you've got like commercial at the bottom, you've got residential on top, so maybe that's maybe a way to have at least a minimal residential area.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and look at this. I do remember some discussions, although it's been quite a while ago, about the size of apartment units in the mixed use area, and concern about making sure, upstairs apartments were of at least a minimal square footage. And frankly, I think that it can fairly be read that this requirement only applies to existing mixed-use dwellings.
Okay.
Right? Because of the clause at the end of the sentence that says, as a part of mixed-use dwelling already existing on the property.
This is
and if,
vacant property.
yeah,
It's unimproved.
and if that's the reading that we assume, because this is a new dwelling, a new building, that would not apply. But, open to thoughts or ideas about that.
I mean, there's room to do it. The question would come, the interpretation of it. Obviously, these are 3-bedroom units. So then it's a
pretty good size apartment. A lot of
Yeah.
apartments are 1,000 square feet or less. So. Did you have another question, Krista?
I did, just the park strips, do those comply with the landscaping ordinance? We have park strips. I thought we talked last
We
week. about
do,
not having park strips.
but within the historic district mixed use, there aren't specific minimum park strip requirements.
Okay.
As long as it meets the landscape code, and it does. But we don't have where it says specific, like a PD 5 foot here and 5 foot here, 10 foot here. It's a little more flexible.
I think the reason for that is that a lot of the landscape park strip is inside the city right away down there and exists already as part of the streetscape project.
Matt, question for you is on the density issue. Doesn't our density apply on any property as far as numbers?
You'll have to help me with your question a little bit, Denny. I'm
For
not sure what you're
example,
asking.
if I came in with a half acre without any density levels in the mixed use zone, I could put 40. As long as I meet, and if I don't have a square footage requirement, as long as I meet the historical district approval and the planning commission approval, I can put 40 units on a piece of property.
Well, I don't think it says that. It talks about 2-family dwellings such as a duplex, twin home, or townhome, but only in the following circumstances. And then it discusses that, and then it says other uses determined by the planning commission with input from the Heritage Commission as being in harmony with the intent and purpose of the zone. And we have that in all our zones. We have that in the PD zone and other zones, other uses. And so basically what we're looking at here is roughly half an acre. They're asking for 4 units. And so the density would be about 8 units on the acre, which is similar to a PD zone, the base, but those provisions don't apply here. So both the Heritage Commission and the Planning Commission felt good about the density because it's a total of 4 units. They will not be short-term rentals. They would be long-term rentals. And they're actually talking about 2 spaces, the office spaces, making the apartments available to employees. Someone could live and work. There could be a true live work, which we don't currently have, but they're creating 2 office spaces. It could be a startup, it could be an IT. I don't know what it is, but they want to offer that opportunity. I'm not sure what the density is in Santa Clara. It's the same zone right next to us here. And Mr. Kohler has quite a few more units in those buildings.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Yeah, right. So this seems very less dense than that project right next door to us here.
Well,
So,
my question is, if we don't have a density level,
right.
it doesn't matter what your acre density means, doesn't matter if it's 12 units. If I want to put a mixed use building in the front, I can put 40 units behind it, apartment units. How can I limit that?
Well, I think
That
that's,
site wouldn't allow for the
yeah,
parking.
I
and
think
everything
that's
else.
technically true, except that they're gonna have to pass through you, Danny, and I don't think you would allow that. So
Well,
They would
I
have to bring,
I'm opposed to 4 units.
And they'd have to have 40 parking spaces or 80 based on the unit, and it would be real tough. And to
Well,
go that vertical, we wouldn't allow that type of height. They'd have to go 50, 60 feet up in the air.
My picture of the
So-
downtown historical unit is that we created the mixed use for one building, not to create townhomes behind the mixed use building with the commercial and the
Right.
residential in it.
It is
Now
one
we've
big-
created something that was beyond the scope of what was planned for the historical district in downtown Santa Clara.
It is one building. It's just separate, you've got.
I
the
understand
office,
it's one
yeah.
building, but it's creation
Okay.
and what they've required. They've got 4 buildings that are separated from the existing commercial building with the apartment.
I'll just mention that Jarrett just pointed out that in the dimensional requirements of the mixed use zone, there is a minimum floor area listed there of 700 square feet of living space per unit, unless otherwise recommended by the planning commission and approved by the city council. So it's a little different than the one in the other section, because the other one was the 700 on a main floor level. But, this is specific to the zone. Which clearly I think that, I think that's exceeded by this design.
Yeah, that's item, is it E? No,
H.
sorry, H, item H.
Yeah,
It talks
item
about a
H.
minimum 700 square feet, and this is quite a bit bigger than that.
Right. So a different standard in a different place in the ordinances.
We did like the 2-car garage versus just outside parking for the renters.
I think in response a little bit with Danny, the mixed use, commercial, residential mix. I mean, I think a lot of us see it, commercial down low, residential above. I think we're just putting the commercial to the street with the residential behind as part. I mean, I guess you could look at it a variety of ways. And as far as the density, I mean, just to point out a couple facts, this building is 29 feet. 2 weeks ago, we had one, everyone out with pitchforks over 30 feet, which is allowed in the historic district. The footprint of this building is 26% of the lot. The one that was before us 2 weeks ago, just down the road, is 14% of the total acreage. And the total square footage of this is actually 50% of the lot, the total structure. At 99.
Top and bottom.
Top and bottom
Yeah.
at 9,900 feet. The one we had 2 weeks ago is actually 32% of that total acreage. So,
But we didn't approve the building 2 weeks ago. We approved the zone change.
no, I
Just the
agree.
general plan.
I'm saying, let me finish, please. What I'm saying, I like this. I think it does a lot of what we've asked in the downtown as far as density per acre. We've seen projects far less dense with far more public outcry. And so again, it's from my side, you're debating, okay, if this was all commercial down below and all residential up above, we've discussed that. That's something we've looked at. That's something that's a mixed use all over, and you're just putting the commercial to the front, the residential to the back. And I think it's it's the density. I think we could discuss back and forth, but yeah, I like that it's got parking inside. I think if we eliminate that, I think you'd have problems with there's a lot of good things about it, but it is, again, it's what do we want downtown?
And what's the traffic that we're talking about dumping onto Santa Clara Drive? You got 4 residential and commercial traffic coming in and out?
Pretty minimal, I would assume.
What's that?
Pretty minimal impacts.
But in residential, 4 trips a day?
Yeah, but the volume on the Santa Clara Drive is way, way above that. So this would be, I would see that as being insignificant because you've got 10,000 trips on Santa Clara Drive. These are 15. So, yeah.
I mean, you're not able to get on Santa Clara Drive now. Let's increase the traffic flow on it. That'll help.
Yeah, I guess I disagree.
But that's a regional issue. That's not a city issue or a city land use issue. The traffic on Santa Clara Drive is driven by regional traffic. A majority of the increase in recent times has come from the Ivans development out there. And we have zero control over that. There's the MPO and the transportation taxes and everything that you're well aware of that cover regional routes and the additional regional routes. Lane widenings, we're looking at widening up on Pioneer Parkway, we're looking at Western Corridor. Those are all being addressed relative to regional traffic, which is what Santa Clara Drive is today. That's old Highway 91. It was regional before any development started happening down here. It'll stay regional going forward.
But it just contributes more.
It does.
So Rick, you'd asked about stormwater, and again, on the site plan review and the ordinance, it says that if storm runoff is handled on site, a document showing how the drainage will be handled, stamped by an engineer, must be submitted. And we don't have that, right? So it's kind of the same with this and the geotechnical report. It acts like an ordinance. Those need to be here right now for us to approve this, but am I reading that wrong?
Now, typically a lot of those are presented with construction plans.
Right.
The detail information that you need.
When we do a subdivision plat, which is the next item on the agenda, they're required to submit a geotechnical report at building permit. So they're submitting that geotechnical report prior to obtaining a building permit. So.
And all that's required, the stormwater, it'd be hard to, like I said, unless you knew exactly what was approved. Because if it's surface going to what's out there now, that's all part of your engineered documents that are submitted at that point.
And that's how we got it with some of the, I'm thinking about Country Lane Corners, the new one that you see going vertical with the framing. Through their site plan review, they submitted the geotechnical stuff with construction drawings prior to a building permit. So
it would be hard. And again, maybe that's something we need to look at. This would be a hard time to require. The geotech's pretty easy because most of these lots already have that. It'd be
all new construction.
It'd be a file that none of us could understand and we would try to interpret but then you'd just be checking the box. But all of it's required, whether it's storm bricks are kept on site or however or allowed out, but all that would have to be required.
Yeah, the storm drain calcs and this particular site, I don't have a lot of concerns with the storm drain other than just recognizing there's offsite flows that have to be routed through. And I think the applicant's demonstrated that he understands that.
So the one comment I would make about this, question of the geotechnical report not being provided at this stage. First of all, I'll just note that the city council has denied applications before because of deficiencies in certain things not being provided. The one in particular that comes to mind is the assisted living facility that was at Gates Lane and Santa Clara Drive previously. But what the ordinance actually says at the beginning, it says the following elements shall be addressed as part of the site plan review. By my reading, that means that all of these elements need to at least be considered. It doesn't necessarily mean that something has to be submitted if the city decides that it's not necessary for whatever reason. I think in the case of the assisted living center, I think we were operating at that point under the plan development ordinance, which has its own separate list. And it was a pretty long list of things that had not been provided. And I think that raised some concern for the council at the time. Here, where we're talking about one or two items and it sounds like there may be good reason that they haven't been required to this point. We're still addressing them. We're still, identifying them. We're noting that they're not required now, and then we'll get them later. So, ultimately, I feel like that's a call for you to make as the council. Certainly if there's something that you don't have that you feel like you should have, then absolutely, I'd say you're justified in saying, let's either get it first or let's deny it on that basis. But, I don't see this as anywhere near the equivalent of like the situation with the assisted living facility, if that helps.
Is that something that could be added as a condition if they choose?
Well, again, in my opinion, I think if we've discussed it and there's a consensus that a particular item isn't really needed at this stage, I feel like we've addressed it. And if you want to include something like that as a condition to be provided at a certain stage going forward, I think that's fine too. So I think that's all within the city council's discretion. I don't think this is a hard and fast checklist. I think it's just saying, make sure these items are addressed, and we can address them by simply saying, we don't need it at this stage. So.
Can I
for
make
what
one
it's
comment?
worth.
So I think to your point, Matt, to your point, Matt, I was involved in another development that was denied for a geotech. And I think what in that case, what it was is there were some serious concerns about the actual feasibility of the project. So like, for example, it was out there in the middle of the wash. And so you're like, hey, are these soils even suitable to build anything? In this case, I don't think anyone's concerned about the general feasibility of the project due to stormwater or geotech constraints. So that's why I don't think we've had to go any further with it.
And I think the other one we were talking, on the assisted living, we didn't have densities, we didn't have square footage. There was a lot of lighting, a lot of information that, again, the things I think we're concerned about are addressed in the permitting process. I think the fact that Rosenberg's here, the consultants here, been hired, that's all going to be required in that and will be addressed.
I kind of feel like in reading through the zone itself, the historical district, that all we're doing here is circumventing to help maximize profits. The actual idea of the historical zone in Santa Clara was to protect Santa Clara and to make sure that what we have here is to be maintained. And to me, the spirit of that is not part of this group. Now, dictatorially, the ordinance needs to be reviewed. To me, that we preview what we're having happen and that we're not a part of changing Santa Clara unless Santa Clara wants to be changed. We're not different than the people that live here. We are people that live here, and what you want in Santa Clara is what the people want. And I think what we're looking at is a way of circumventing that.
I have another question. I'm sorry, I'm belaboring this. I'm also in the code 17.74.050. C is cooperation between property owners on adjacent properties will be strongly encouraged and carefully reviewed in the plan approval process. Do we have any evidence that has occurred? Like, I didn't see in the planning commission, I didn't see anything from the Heritage Commission about any sort of cooperation. I don't know what that exactly would be.
What section is that?
It's 17.74.050.
Yeah, go ahead.
And then C.
Well, a few of the neighbors are on the planning commission, our Heritage Commission, so we did have some pretty good discussions with some of the direct neighbors.
Excuse me. Hey, I need
Sorry.
you to introduce yourself, name and address before you start speaking, please.
Oh, sorry, I thought I had the go ahead. This is Justin Anderson. I'm the applicant.
Okay, you can go ahead now, Justin. Thank you.
Sorry, I thought I saw good to go. I was just going to add, if you don't mind, that on the Heritage Commission, there are some direct neighbors that we were able to talk to. just in response to that.
Jim, can I ask you on the height of the building?
Uh-huh.
So this is not an average of the adjacent buildings on the block, right? This is just an ask for 20, whatever, 29 feet.
29 to the parapet and 27.8, but if you, I don't want to name homes or residences, I can drive around and clearly see some in the 30 to 35 feet range or in the immediate vicinity, and some of them are single family homes.
Sure.
Right in the area.
Can you give me for reference the height of the Merck across the street approximately?
I'd have to refer to Cody. Is it like 21 or 22? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. It seems
It's
like
in
the
the
parapet would be
20s.
around the,
Yeah.
I would guess 18 to 20 foot range.
Now, the phase two that the owner, the Gooblers, would like to build, where they bought the property behind it and rezoned it last year, that building is 25 or 26 that they're looking at with the design right now. They haven't moved forward on that, but it is taller than the existing Merck by at least 6 feet. So,
And maybe I can add, I know when it came to
Yes.
heritage, that was a concern, and I'm sure you've read the minutes, but that was a concern was some of the height. And one of the comments from heritage was, this is going to be 20-foot setback off the street where the Merck is not. And so
yeah, they're at
just the
that
distance
closer.
further off the street will give the appearance of it being shorter. That was one of the comments made at heritage.
Do you already have commercial tenants planned for this space? Kind of know what you're wanting to put in there?
Can the applicant answer?
Justin, can you answer that?
Yes, we do not currently have any leases in place. The lease, the target of who we'd like to get to lease this space would be possibly someone who lives on the project. And we're hoping to bring in a business that would be considered to be professional office. So it could be anywhere from, computers to IT work. It could be an architect, it could be an engineer, it could be a law office, real estate, title company, professional office, or something in that similar vein.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. Other questions, council? Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, discussion? Any additional discussion or questions for the staff?
I mean, something else I've thought about is, that average height you just talked about, Krista, and next to the, west is a 2-story, but not like a real tall 2-story. Swoon is just single story. Merck is like 1.5 stories, it sounds like. Behind this property, there's a 2-story home that's pretty big. I don't know how tall it is, but it looks pretty tall.
I actually asked, it's 30 feet.
30 feet.
And there are some others up and down the streets if you walk around.
And a new single-family home down there could go as high as 35.
And I guess, just a question we have to ask ourselves, like if you just take the residential and how big the lot is, we're looking at 8.88 units per acre plus a commercial building on it. That's just 0.45, or 4 divided by 0.45, it's 8.88. And that's not part of this requirement. At least we have to have that in mind anyways. So we're thinking about this.
And basically, because this is a mixed-use development, how about if we require that they have the commercial rented before they rent any of the townhomes?
I think they build it as one permit, but I get it.
You've officially retired from real estate. Okay, any other discussion, council?
Mainly just for staff. So for power, water, we're looking one power meter for the entire project. I mean, it's,
No, it'll probably be a meter pack on the backside. So one for the office space and one individual one for each unit.
okay. And I saw the gas meters. I could see that, but water would be the same way, Dustin, on that.
Individual metered, yes.
Individually metered. As far as ownership, it would be one parcel, one ownership for the entire project.
Since these are rentals, could they consider the common meter?
So I guess the question comes back to Jarrett and Denny, just as far as densities, because it is, I mean, we're in mixed use and mixed use. Part of our ordinance is trying to encourage that, but what is the density that's, you're trying to create a shopping with residential behind it where you can park behind it. I don't maybe agree or disagree with what's been said, is just what is, again, if this was any other project, Jarrett stated it's over 8 per acre. I mean, what's the right number there? Because
Yeah, we've had other folks come to us and, you know, what about apartments here? What about short-term rentals here? There's been other things that have been proposed. It just hasn't gotten to this point. And this seems to be a good mixed-use building. I mean, the design, they should be, I mean, it is a great design and it's unique. You know, I don't know that we have a true mixed-use building. I'm trying to think. Well, I guess the Merck, because they live in it and they do startup businesses, but they're looking to build, you know, a building behind where they're going to manufacture and ship stuff in the near future. But it does appear to fit that mixed use niche, which is the zone that it's in. That's all I have to say. So.
And what I see here is not a mixed use. What I see here is a residential high density. And then they've thrown a commercial building in so that they can qualify for mixed use.
So I guess my question on that then, what is your definition of mixed use? Because mixed use to me is commercial residential mix.
Residential to me, what everybody tried to create was Europe, where the stores are on the street side with the apartments above that they could rent. This is creating apartments and hopefully they'll rent commercial. To me, it's a totally different mixed use. We've got Andy and, you know, we've got a number of buildings that could be used mixed use. And to me, the idea of Santa Clara Drive being high density with mixed use in front isn't what I perceive that we intended when we created that, the heritage historical overlay. The historical overlay was created to maintain Santa Clara.
Well, Ben, your question is a good one. I mean, they're trying to go horizontal here with the mixed use rather than vertical. You know, we have height allowances and a lot of mixed use that you see, true vertical mixed use you see in larger downtowns. In smaller communities, you're going to see more horizontal mixed use. A lot of times they want 5, 6 stories, sometimes 3 or 4. You want ground floor office retail, but multiple stories above that to allow for more units. So what is it you want? You know, what's the niche? Yeah, it's a medium density. You know, we have medium density residential that goes up to 12 units per acre in the PD zone. This is a historic district mixed use. We don't have a density limitation. If that's something the council wants us to look at, we certainly can. But at this point in time, there isn't. I don't think we'd get 40 to 50 units per acre. If someone came in here and they wanted 20 units per acre, I think that would be a real concern. I don't see us saying anything greater than 12, just like the PDR. It's not a PDR, but that's our highest and most dense use in the city, is that allowing up to 12 with a bonus in a different zone, not this zone, but I don't see anybody ever getting more than that. But yeah, it's doing the quick math, it's 8.8 or 8.88, but it's a medium density it is, so.
On the parking requirement, again, I think our protection on density is our parking requirements and our height restrictions.
Yeah.
So and that's what, that was my, kind of my purpose of the question is if we're limited at right now, calls out at 25, we've gone up to 30, obviously there's 35 around it.
Yeah.
You could put all the commercial down on that, but then you don't get the frontage of the commercial.
Right. Our
Yeah,
requirements require them to park it. You know, they have to bear the burdens of their impacts. So they're showing 12 office and then the 8 for the units themselves. I can tell you downtown Salt Lake City, they've approved vertical mixed use along the tracks line, but no parking, just find parking on the street. We don't count street parking. We don't want that impact to be borne by everybody else. They need to bear their own burdens. So yes, they're showing parking here and they're not. They do have space for a couple of cars up front, but we don't count that. They have to show parking on their side.
Well, I guess my opinion would be that we look at this down the road and get the people involved in making the decision as to what they want in the historical district, rather than us making an arbitrary decision as to what's going to be density wise in that zone. Again, I think it's something that we should have included when we created the zone, but it doesn't have it now. And so we've got a little bit of a dilemma legally. I don't know how we're going to stop this unless we just vote against it until we come up with a solution. But to me, this is not the proposed building itself. If it were a single level, or 2-story, or even if the front building was 30 feet high, the plan was that there would be commercial and residential in the same building, not commercial, residential, and 4 townhomes.
I guess I'll add, I can appreciate what you're saying, and I actually agree with you. I think we ought to probably look at some densities going forward. I mean, there isn't anything necessarily we can do about this application because the application is before us, but I think that we ought to consider that and maybe relook and put something in place. I realize that sites will determine that to some degree, but if there is a hard number, then maybe that's easier for us and the residents to all understand. So I guess I'm looking at this from the perspective of we don't have a general plan change. We don't have a zone change because it meets all of the existing zoning and permitted use requirements. So my question for me is, does it meet the historic nature of what we're looking at? Because that's the whole reason why we have a site review, when it meets all of the other requirements of our ordinance. And so I'll go back to Heritage Commission just because I happen to be there. They had a lot of discussion about the look of the building, and they did ask the applicant to make some changes to the building with some larger stones and some different colors and some brick, and a little bit of the addition with the cornicing on the top of it, because they wanted it to have a more early architecture business feel. And so given that they've come back and done what they were asked to do, and that the historic committee, I have a lot of faith in our historic committee. They are really interested in wanting to protect downtown, and they do a great job. And I have a lot of faith in them that they talk about this and they discuss it. And so I think their expertise and the things that they suggest are a value to us. And so I think the changes that have made do make it more, from the original building I looked at originally, do make it more historic to meet those guidelines, given that it meets the uses as required by everything else. So that's my 2 cents.
Any other comments, council?
I tend to agree with Councilwoman Lane or Mathis, and I appreciate her comments. I also am concerned about the historic look of this downtown. But as I look at this zone, I feel like it does meet what the zone is intended to do, to encourage residential uses in conjunction with commercial and other compatible activities. Plan development of mixed-use developments by providing procedures for plan review and approval. Strengthen the city's economic base and provide linkages between employment opportunities and housing. And it talks specifically about high-density housing. And so I feel like a lot of this meets what the zone is trying to accomplish.
Any other comments, council? There's no other comments. I would look for a motion.
I do want to bring out just one more thing from the code. Near the end, when it's talking about plan approval, it just says the intent of this form of zoning is to provide an alternate procedure for specific development proposals. And then it talks about it allows the approval of plans using flexible requirements, maybe different from all other zones in the city. So like this zone was envisioned to be a little different from all the other zones. Maybe that's why there isn't a density in there. It's meant to be really flexible. I mean, that's one way to look at it, but I just wanted to add that as part of our thought process.
And I'm not opposed to discussing the density. You know, I don't think it would be a bad thing at all for us to look at that and discuss that. I do think height restrictions and parking is probably why we don't have it, because you're so restricted under those, under what you can get per acre. But I think as a group, I don't think it can be specific to this, but I do think we can look at it because we are going to have other applications similar to this.
Okay, any other comments? I would accept a motion.
Mayor, I'll make that motion that we approve the site plan approval and the mixed use building located at 3098 Santa Clara Drive as presented.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Ben and a second by Krista to approve the site plan for the proposed mixed-use building located at 3098 Santa Clara Drive as presented. Excuse me. Any question on that motion, council? Let's do roll call vote again. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista? Aye.
Denny?
No.
Jared?
Nay.
On my count, the ayes have it 3-2. Council. Item number B4. Discussion and action to consider final plat approval for the Logano subdivision, property located directly south of Vineyard Drive and east of Riverwood Lane. Jason Lindsay is the applicant. Jared, are you here representing Jason?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Jim?
I'll go ahead. Thanks, Mayor. This is a request for final plat approval. It includes 5 lots on 6.49 acres of property. The zoning's RA, which requires that minimum half-acre lot size. These lots range in size from 0.61 to 1.25 acres in size. In the RA zone, it's a low-density zone with that half-acre minimum. So the density is at 0.77 dwelling units per acre. It's our lowest density area in the city. Ingress and egress to this site will be provided via Pioneer Parkway that you can see right here where the cursor or arrow is. Sorry, not Pioneer, of course, Vineyard. Provided via Vineyard Drive and Riverwood Lane, which is right here, which would turn into here and become Riverwood Circle, and then Logano Lane. So there's 2 points of ingress and egress. The applicant is also going to be required to form an HOA allowing for maintenance of some common areas or some improvements they would like to have. I'd like to quickly go through some of the final plat information. We do require public streets and dedication. They're proposing a public street with a 56-foot cross section. This includes a park strip for street trees. And then full improvements are required on lot 5 on both the proposed Logano Lane as well as Vineyard Drive. Building setbacks and height will be required to comply with the code 17.60. Now, as far as the open space goes, it includes 2 open space areas. One is adjacent to lot 5, which is this area that you see here. And then the other one is on the other side of the street and goes along the whole distance of Logano Lane, going back to Riverwood Lane. That's an area that will be owned and maintained by an HOA. And so that's required that they put that in their CC&Rs, and they're going to do that. And they've added notes to the final plat addressing that. Culinary water, they do have to get that letter from the Washington County Water Conservancy District. There is secondary available, and I believe they've connected to our secondary system. And then dust control, they're required to submit a dust control plan prior to final plat recordation. We need to take caution, and we have concerns about the general health, safety, and welfare of residents living in the vicinity. We have not received any comments on this item from the public. Our different reviewing departments have taken a look. As indicated previously, the building department does require a geotechnical report for each residential building prior to permit issuance. The Parks and Rec department did provide information on street trees. They're recommending that a Chinese pistache, which is a medium to large tree, the live oak, which is a medium to large tree, and a crepe myrtle, which is a small to medium sized tree, be used in the park strip for the project. And then the power department, just making sure we have the public utility easements shown and required on the plat. And then Public Works, the same with the PUE easements, that the public streets, are required, and that's what they're putting in. And then a Mylar with signature blocks. And so our staff recommendation is as follows. The Planning Commission held a public meeting on July 13th, 2023, and recommended final plat approval to the City Council. City staff recommends that the City Council consider granting final plat approval for the Logano subdivision, subject to conditions 1 through 10 in the staff report. That's all I have, Mayor, and the applicant's engineer, Jared Bates, is here this evening as well.
Questions, council, for the staff? This is all on the preliminary plat, right? You approved preliminary plat?
I'm sorry, yes.
Subdivisions following. preliminary plat.
Yes, correct.
Council, questions for the staff or questions for the applicant? They have brought their irrigation shares in to the city. Okay. And if there's no questions, I'd look for a motion.
I move that we approve the final plat approval for the Laguna subdivision.
Second.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Lena to approve the final plat for Logano subdivision. Any question on that motion, council? Roll call vote. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
5-0. Now, I understand correct that final plats are not going to be coming to us much longer, right?
That's correct, Mayor. That will start in early to mid 2024. I need to look at the statute, but it's yes, you won't be seeing those
We won't
final
be
plats,
seeing-
just preliminary plats.
All right, thank you, guys. Thank you, Jared. Take the rest of the night off.
See you in the morning.
Okay, number 5, award wrap tax, presented by Ryan. And the winner is, or the winners are.
Winners are. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have to start off, I'm a little disappointed. Thought they were all here to support me.
I'm their favorite, I'm sorry.
We actually have 3 items. There's 2 on the agenda. One, Mr. Tuacon, we'll get into that. They don't usually send us a request.
That's yours, sorry.
We'll start with the one by Susie Nielsen. She's requesting some funding for the Arboretum. Kind of a side note, the Arboretum is mostly dependent on volunteers. For example, the the kiosks and the building, the gondola that she's referring to were Eagle Scout projects. Susie herself and also Lee Hughes spend a lot of time in Arboretum, as well as we have classes from the university that come out several times a year. Unfortunately, we had 25 to 40 student classes scheduled early this spring, working in Arboretum as we usually do. Both times they got rained out, which usually doesn't happen here. This year is a little different. So, kind of scrambling. Anyway, she is requesting the amount of $1,000 to refurbish and repair a couple of the kiosks and also the gondola in the cactus garden. Some say it was by wind. To me, it looks more like intentional. But anyway, the whole roof is collapsed. It's laying there on the side. $1,000 that she is requesting is for materials only. All the work and labor will be provided by volunteers. And as she states, they are supported through the 501c3 from the Santa Clara Historical Museum. The second one is Heidi Lee of Ham Productions for Shakespeare in the Park, which, as you all know, is getting bigger and bigger every year. Our actual request this year is less than it was last year, so that's surprising. She's requesting the amount of $14,000. She's provided a list of what that all includes. And then the third one that is not on the agenda is the annual amount of $5,000 that we've been awarding to Tuacahn. Well, those are the three that we have received this year.
Is that on this, Brian? Is this? Okay.
No, that's all from that.
We signed it.
It's just a
With
copy
Tuacahn.
spreadsheet.
Okay, so your total request was
$20,000.
$20,000, and we anticipate how much revenue coming in from that?
According to the budget report, we have $30,000.
So the other 10 will go into the parks.
Yes.
Questions for Ryan, council? These are all applicants that have applied before. And I think have done good work with their awards.
Yeah, I've been really happy with how they've spent the money in the past. Both of these applicants, well, actually all three. Done a great job.
Just clarification, and I know Brock's not here, so Jim, you probably can't answer this, but Mayor, you might be able to. We also we were gonna take $10,000, I believe, from the wrap tax to go towards the buffalo purchase.
Yes.
So is that part of?
That's the other 10 grand.
Is that the?
Doesn't get parks, it'll go to Bison.
Now that you, yes, so remind me. Yes, Brock and I discussed that on Monday as far as where that would go, and that's what he brought up was.
That's priority one. That's number one.
What, are we also having, do we also have 10,000 for the puzzle wall from the wrap tax?
Right.
Are we gonna have to start fighting for money?
Perhaps.
It'll either come from wrap tax or the administrative department budget.
Now, if we did have a little bit of a shortfall, when I talked to Utah Tech, that individual said we could do it in two budgets. We could pay 50% this year and 50% next if we had to. So that's just another way to spread the money if needed. So
Just want that on.
I've been driving around looking at them, kind of cattle, seeing all the bison around town.
They're cool.
And then just one clarification. So did we give Shakespeare in the Park 10?
Last year was 14,500. I've got
All of that
the
added
3
together.
previous years, if you want that.
Because they show it was 10, right? Did I miss it?
When Washington.
There's
bought
more
one, that's what
here.
they did.
2019 was $10,000.
Okay.
2020 was 5,500.
Maybe
because
her
of
state,
COVID, they
that's
didn't
right.
have
These are
to have
private
it. 2021 was 13,750. Last year was 14,500.
Okay.
School taxes going down or right?
I'll
Six for the
disregard-
park
I'll
going down?
disregard her P and L.
26 for St. George.
We're saving all sorts of money.
Yeah, I think I'd take a motion to award at least the three that have been presented. we'll let Brock come back and tell us on the fourth.
Well, I would move to approve the RAP tax awards to the 3 applicants that we have.
Second.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Krista to approve the RAP tax awards as presented tonight. Any question on that motion, council? Like, and I got a second, okay, yeah, never mind. Money item, all in favor, say aye. Jarrett?
Aye.
Denny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
5-0 has it. Thank you, council.
Can I just tack one thing on at the end?
Absolutely.
I know Heidi expressed a little bit of frustration with our application process because I don't think we have anything super defined. So maybe we just had a little blurb on our website, apply by this date. That might be enough to just
Yes.
make it pretty
Rob and I
simple.
discussed that also. We will clarify that.
Okay, perfect.
Didn't we set some deadline dates when we first set it up? Did they get lost in the shuffle? That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so she like submitted and was concerned she hadn't made the deadline. She didn't even know what the deadline was. And so anyways, it all worked out, but there was just some frustration in the middle.
Fine.
We'll clarify.
Perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Jared. Okay, item 6, award the bid for Vineyard Drive reconstruction phase 2. Dustin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to ask you to consider your approval of the Vineyard Drive Phase 2 reconstruct of Whitaker Construction, the sole bidder. They came in 23,000 under engineer's estimate, which I have not seen in years. They are the contractor from Phase 1. They did an outstanding job, completed everything as directed to, and didn't have one problem with. I can't see the number. With the buyback on the sidewalk will be about 77,000, I think it was, which I've already started getting checks from residents on.
Really?
And we're gonna try and get this done by 4 Swiss days.
Oh.
Worst case scenario will be curb gutter and road base, so it'll be better than it is now.
It'll either be a 5K or a steeplechase. Just holding off on
That's
the-
not a bad idea.
Question?
Get her done.
I'd look for motion, council.
I'll make that motion if I can find where I'm at.
Do you need a dollar amount in the motion or just approve it?
Should have a dollar amount to Whitaker Construction.
What's the dollar amount?
I got it. You just look at that up.
All right.
691.
I would make a motion, I'll go slow, that we approve the bid for Vineyard Drive reconstruction phase 2 to Whitaker Construction in the amount of.
Yep.
Oh.
691 something. Hang on.
691,000.
600,
91, 232.50.
699,
691,
691,
There it is, I
232.
blew it up.
Is that right?
Yes.
And if there's any change, I'll add that. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Got a motion by Ben and a second by Jared to approve the award for the Vineyard Drive reconstruction phase 2 to Whitaker Construction in the amount of 691, 322.50. Question on that motion, council? Where'd she go?
She said she had to step out for a second.
This is a good one to get a vote on. This is a big deal.
This is a big
She
deal.
said Dustin was pretty.
Do you want me to go knock on the door and see?
We'll give her a few minutes, personal time. Because I don't want her to miss this
Well, that was
opportunity.
about the most-
Okay, we've got a motion and a second to award it to Vineyard or to Whitaker.
Do you want me to second it?
It's all done.
Hold up.
I'm just getting ready to start the
Just a
roll.
vote.
Okay, roll call. Ben,
Aye.
Lena,
Aye.
Krista,
Aye.
Danny,
Aye.
Jared.
Aye.
Ayes have it 5-0. We just didn't want you to miss that vote.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Item 7, award the bid for the BMX and Canyon View parking lot construction. Dustin?
I'm also asking you to consider approval for the construction of the BMX and the Canyon View parking lots with the low bidder Progressive Contracting for the cost of $1,039,755.80. of which 500,000 comes from the county tourism grant. Now, if you'll notice in the bids, we bid this back in February. We didn't have enough money. They came in over 200,000 above engineer's estimate. They were still the low bidder at the time. Ryan Von Cannon with Parks since then went back to the county and got another 250,000, which makes the project now affordable for us. We did have to cut a few things out. We took a lot of the parking islands out of the canyon or the BMX parking lot. We're just going to use paint instead. On the north lot, we removed a lot of the north parking. Figured we can call that phase 2. We'd like to add that parking at some point. Removed a small portion of trail at that lot and seal coat from both parking lots, which is not something that's been used in 25 years. Progressive has agreed to come in and do it for that price of $1,390,000.
So Dustin, you say you did go back to them and it didn't come down. The pricing didn't come down from February.
No, we had to make these changes to the parking lots for the money that we had after
Right.
we went back, and got the tourism grant. It finally made it affordable to take out all those parking islands and some of the asphalt.
So the design is the same as what we had before. We're just removing the islands and gonna stripe it instead.
Aside from the Canyon View North parking lot, we took a small portion of parking that was up there by that fire pit.
Mhm.
And we can do that at a later phase if we would like to.
Okay.
Just makes it affordable to where we can do it this year. It's a very small portion,
Are you gonna try and have this done by Swiss phase 2?
trying, but again, it's tight.
That's what I was thinking, we're still gonna do the car show up there? Where's Brock Junior over there?
Yeah, they're still doing the car show.
Okay, so we'll just have to work around the car
It's
show.
not gonna be any
parking.
worse than it is right now.
Yes.
It's still worst
Oh.
case scenario.
Trust me, it can always be worse than it is right now.
So
They have a start
Dustin,
date of August 2nd. They think they can be real close.
so can you maybe scroll down to the actual parking plan so we know what's being taken out? So like on the north parking, you said we're taking out the parking spaces. It's still paved all the way to the parking
Correct.
that will be there.
Yes.
Just the extra parking on the edges won't go in now.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, go down a little more.
See where the fire pit is up at the top?
Yeah.
In the corner.
There was parking all up in there.
Oh, so what's on here is actually happening?
Yeah, these are the approved plans.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, there was another parking lot that went up into that fire pit area.
Oh, gotcha.
They've just taken that off for now.
Right here. You want me to scroll down more?
Just scroll down one more, then it's like a direct view of that exact area. Yeah. But even this will be amazing, what's on here.
Yes, it should be a huge improvement.
Dustin, what are you doing on drainage on that?
Both of them have some small portions of storm drain we'll be collecting.
Is that piping down off the hill or you?
Into the log pond wash.
Through the Little League Park.
Right through second base.
That'll help. It'll take a little water off that hillside. Hey, we've got the blocks there.
So Dustin, if we find, because I know like with the BMX races, they'll bring big RVs and trailers, and if we find them parking in those striped islands, could we add islands later?
Sure.
They just wouldn't
Absolutely.
have plants or anything, right? They would just, okay.
You could go out there and cone an RV parking for the specific event itself.
Okay.
And sign it that way.
I could just see them ignoring some stripes on the ground because they just need the spot, and then it's hard for people to get out.
That's what I would suggest, is that you go into an area and identify an area for RV and then control the parking so that cars don't take it over.
Yeah, okay.
Were we landscaping originally? Were we landscaping?
We still are. We'll be, we'll be.
So there'll be
Brian's
pipes,
got some dressing up to do.
there'll be
in
some
of the
pipes and
areas.
stuff down
Yes.
before they lay the asphalt.
Uh-huh.
Okay, great.
I think the islands removal is just gonna save my tires. I think of the money I'm gonna save just in shredding my sidewall, hitting one of those, so.
I mean, they help a little.
I
bit
might donate a little bit, give you a
with the
couple
heat
tires.
plume. If you can ever get the tree to mature, the trouble I've seen is they never can get the tree to mature. It just always stays a little tree.
And then somebody runs it over
And
anyway.
somebody clips it.
It's like our islands down. Just when they're about ready, we wipe them out. So this is awesome. Their plan includes the demolition of the skate park, or is that something more? They're doing that?
Yep.
So get on your horses, council, for a new skate park.
We gotta deal with the splash pad first.
Oh,
True, I agree.
There's
That's
newer-
priority over the skate park.
I will let all my skater
the
buddies
ladies have
know.
spoken. Yeah, I will not.
Mayor,
You
isn't
guys
there-
have
Mayor,
just
isn't there new
fallen in the
requirements?
restroom at the cemetery hole.
Splash pad.
Do we need to send anything to Tyler Rowley? I mean, he was the one he was the Eagle Scout that put it together and built it.
He gave us the money, we built it.
Yeah, you guys built it, but I mean, he went out and had the fundraisers and everything to get the material and stuff. I just, and I don't know if we need to do anything.
Is he
did it
around?
As an Eagle Scout.
Is he here?
He lives, I don't know.
He can't see
Around.
those where-
His
Dad lives in
dad's city
Cedar.
manager, but
We could probably get
he's
a
a
hold of
city
Fred.
councilman up there, but
He's not
anymore. Put in some picnic tables.
So that would be
Landscape.
nice, yeah, just a little, it served a long time and we're looking for a new site, sort of a thing.
You could just send a letter.
yeah.
We can send a letter.
Yeah.
You can send it.
Make a note.
Oh, at this part. What's that?
We're gonna send a letter to Tyler Rowling, thanking for his efforts on the old skate park.
Okay,
Pass that along
okay.
to Brock Darling.
And then we're looking for a new site currently.
Tyler Rowley. Okay.
His dad's Fred Rowley in Cedar.
Oh, okay.
Used to be the mayor.
And I am glad that the county stepped up and gave us more money and
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
This will
yeah,
be good.
it's awesome.
Okay, I'd look for a motion, council.
I'll make that motion. I got it up this time. That we approve the BMX and Canyon View parking lots to the low bidder Progressive Contracting for the cost of $1,039,755.80, of which $500,000 comes from the county tourism grant.
Second.
Got a motion by Ben and a second by Lena to award the bid for the BMX and Canyon View parking lot construction to PCI in the amount of $1,039,755.80. Any question on that motion, council? Roll call vote. Jarrett?
Aye.
Danny?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Ben?
Aye.
Guys have it 5-0. Thank you, council. Item 8, discussion and action approving resolution 2023-13R to appoint election judges for the 2023 municipal election. Chris?
Yes, Mayor and Council. What I have before you is a resolution appointing the election judges for the 2023 election. It's resolution 2023-13R. And it'll be for the November 21st general election. We didn't have the primary. And so we need to approve this resolution and also to set the compensation for their services.
This on your compensation, it says poll managers 300 and an additional $2. Is it $2.50 per mile or is it $2 and then 56 cents per mile for driving?
It's an additional $2 period and then 56 cents per mile.
Okay, all right.
That's probably the federal rate.
Yeah.
It is. Any question, council?
Where will they be stationed?
Here.
Here at City Hall.
In the banquet room.
So we won't need them for the September date, correct? Since we don't have a primary.
We won't have a primary, so we won't do
We won't
anything
need
until the
them.
general election. And it'll be held here for the ones that want to come in and vote. It is still vote by mail, but anybody that wants to come in and vote can come in and vote here at the banquet room. So,
I move that we approve resolution number 2023-13R, a resolution designating and appointing election judges and their alternates to serve and their compensation for the service.
Second.
Got a motion by Denny and a second by Krista to approve resolution 2023-13R, appoint election judges for 2023 municipal election as presented. Any question on the motion? Roll call, Jarrett,
Aye.
Denny,
Aye.
Krista,
Aye.
Lena,
Hi.
Dan.
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, council. Number 9, consider adoption of ordinance 2023-19 to correct the legal description in a prior Santa Clara View Drive dedication presented by Matt Hens.
Okay, council, this is an issue that was brought to our attention by a local title company that was assisting a property owner with the sale of their property on Santa Clara View Drive. It turns out that back in 2008, when a portion of Santa Clara View Drive was abandoned by the city, that there was an error in a legal description that wasn't caught. And ultimately, it was only caught once the property was for sale and it went through the underwriting process and so on. And so they reached out to us. It took a little bit of time to figure it out. And unfortunately, they lost their first sale, waiting for the issue to be resolved, but then they were able to put it under contract again. They actually have a closing scheduled for tomorrow. And we've assured them that we could have it resolved by then. So we're just asking for the city council to approve essentially a correction to this 2008 ordinance, which abandoned a portion of the roadway. Doesn't change anything about the original intent. It just simply corrects one of the legal descriptions that was included. And the correction was provided to us by a surveyor at Rosenberg, Brandon Anderson. So we didn't rely on our own wisdom to figure it out. So
We didn't make the error in the beginning. Just put that on the.
that's true. That's true. It was another engineering firm, another surveyor that had made the error years ago. So
You shall not be
It's probably in your packet. No.
So just looking for a motion to approve this correction.
I would make the motion to approve ordinance 2023-19 to correct the legal description in a prior Santa Clara View Drive vacation. Hoping I like vacation.
Second.
Motion by Danny, second by Lena. Any question on that motion, council? All in favor, say aye. Ben?
Aye.
Lena?
Aye.
Krista?
Aye.
Danny?
Aye.
Jarrett?
Aye.
Let's have it 5-0. Mayor and council reports. Ben?
Mayor, most of you know our 12-year-old Little Leaguers are heading back to San Bernardino. So I'm sure they'll be coming for our support again. So they're going to try to do it again. Just following up on earlier, I would actually welcome just more discussion on the downtown, on densities and that.
We talked, Lena and I talked earlier, the Heritage Committee has already requested some additional guidance and direction. What we talked about with Jim was scheduling a joint combined meeting between the council, the planning commission, and making it a public hearing to review the design guidelines and just get some feedback on the intent for the downtown to do exactly what you just mentioned.
You listen in the comments, and the comments said, there's concerning things to me when things get said. Let's get the public to try to make a decision on it, on what we had 30 people out there. And if we asked for what they would like to see there, we would get probably 20 differing views on that. So I think giving clear direction on that, addressing, as Denny said, the densities there. I think, again, we have different opinions on that, but I do think it would help clarify some of that.
And it's interesting because I can remember those days when the map talked about.
Well, yeah, and it was ugly. But we were, the things that we were looking at was the kind of shrub you could plant, the kind of tree you could plant.
Window trim,
Yeah,
color your doors.
And you'd have to get all that approved before you could do anything in the historical district.
The pendulum swung way over there and the residents pushed it all the way over here. And now it's sit there for the last 18 years. But now we're starting to see some development pressure in the downtown. It's going to come back. So we talked about that before the meeting, about getting a combined meeting together as a public hearing, solicit the comments.
Well, even the comment brought it, that was made just with the proximity to the street and setbacks and what those heights do. And because you do have 35-foot homes really close to this and big homes.
Yeah.
We do have homes with fifth wheel trailers parked out in front, but again, if we're going to look at this, I think we have to give guidance to that. I think we have to be cautious in saying, well, I don't like that architecture. I like this architecture.
Well, that's the problem we had. The
Yeah.
different opinions were taking over, and some of the opinions were so extreme that you couldn't do it. So I don't think we're talking about the same mentality as we were back then. I mean, it was an older group about my age.
But we are gonna have a variety. I mean, I live down there now. I live close to these and it's, you start looking at traffic, and again, the traffic of the mayor's right. Our traffic issue is I-15 and Ivans. I mean, that's just our traffic issues.
Maybe we could put a sign out for Ivan's residents.
The toll booth, I've wanted toll booths at both ends
$1 each way.
for a long time.
Toll road.
We could pay for some roads.
Anyway, I just think that's
$20 a week.
like I say, I think we could have a very helpful and discussion in this as we look at it in with, again, trying to find where that balance is. We're going to have opposition, and it's just any change going in there. I mean, I know but you've got large properties there that, again,
We've got a possibility of keeping this Santa Clara, the downtown area. I mean, the heights, you got all the densities up there, but down in the valley, you can maintain an integrity down here that would be, I mean, there are a ton of people, literally a ton of people that will drive through Santa Clara just to drive through because of what it is. And you start putting high density on the main drive and stuff, and people in downtown Santa Clara, I think you're gonna start changing the complexion. Now that's not bad, if that's what you want.
Well, and it's,
you
kind of need a little bit of it, or you got to have some density to support the businesses that are there. If you really want that walkability, when we were talking about Solvang, and when we're really going into the street safety, there's a fine line. Defining that line will be really hard, but we'll take another shot at it.
And Colvin hasn't done well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
those communities, it's kind of like going up to the mine. What was the
Daybreak? Up to Kennecott?
Daybreak.
To Daybreak?
Daybreak. I mean, that was a walking community, it was set up to be a walking community and did not prosper. And so in Vegas, they took landscaping off the front street and made you landscape back because they didn't think it would affect anything, and all of a sudden it changed neighborhoods. Nobody was out visiting, nobody was out talking, and they went completely away from it. Yeah, there's a fine line on everybody, but what I'd like to hear is the people, your neighbors living down here, what do they want? I mean, you know that there's going to be those that are going to say, I don't want a Jim Edge project, I don't want a Kohler project, I don't want townhomes. But you're going to have a little bit of a mix. And I think the idea that you have, Mayor, is a great idea. Get the planning commission, get some public input, have a public meeting to talk about.
the hard part will be after the meeting, writing down and it took us 10 years to write the original design guidelines after we put the ordinance.
If you get Kathleen
Well-
Nielsen, she's already still got the notes.
It took a professional, and I use that Dick Kohler it took him to sit down and put it together. It took an architect to.
We can find one and I can work with that person to put them
So
together.
we're gonna have to, and that'll be hard.
Yeah.
And you won't get a total agreement of everybody on everything that's in it, but hopefully we'll get enough good to.
Well, and you've got some opportunities again. You do need that. You do need some density down there. If you're gonna have some commercial there and I'm not saying the trees are downtown. The trees are, and the vegetation and the landscape and we've got some great buildings down there, but you're gonna need some density in there to support
You're
that.
gonna need some parking. You're gonna need some of those things to make.
And going back to that idea, if you talk to your Uncle Buck, Santa Clara downtown doesn't shop the Heights. They access St. George. That's where they shop. And we get downtown, depending on the business, it'll be interesting to see when we get different businesses. We get a lot of people driving in looking for that quaint little shop. Not resident shopping, but non-resident shopping. I think that's
Yeah, and you're eventually you're gonna have a bus stop down there. So it's just like I said, it worries me when when comments get made, well, let's get the public to make the decision on something, because again, what came before us tonight architecturally, all of us are gonna have a different opinion on how we feel about that and colors but we could put in some direction, I think as far as the question of density, there was a lot of work that was spent on what's done. So it does worry me and you start getting in, I've had pictures sent to me. I mean, I'm sure you all have, I've got 5 different architectural proposals for different projects that just build this, and they're all different areas. And
that's what the downtown is.
But I hate to leave it open to the point where there is no restriction.
But you're dealing with two different issues too.
Pardon?
You're dealing with two different issues. The density issue is going to be a legislative issue that we're going to have to deal with. It's not going to go into your design guidelines because you can't ask a heritage committee to go in and deal with those types of actions. That's not their role. That's
correct.
So you're looking at two completely independent items.
And I think by ordinance, you have to do what I'm talking about. I don't think you leave it as a guideline.
Agree.
You do it by ordinance. You set your restrictions, just like we have in the residential zones and the PD zones and stuff. We actually have a number. And if they comply and they have their parking and their square footage, they're fine. But not to leave it open like we've got it left here.
Anything else to report?
just that. They asked, and this could be for another day, or, I mean, they asked at the end if the council's willing to support something that on it. I definitely don't need an answer now, but we can talk about it. Lane and I were down here kind of reviewing and chuckling. It's nice sitting next to the banker on it.
Well, I was waiting for you to ask him, so then, well, we probably won't ever see another tax increase, right?
Because this is a permanent tax increase.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've already talked to Brent.
It's permanent at that figure right now,
Yeah,
when the theory doesn't comply with making the payments.
Yeah, it is when you look at the debt there and then the need, it's just anyway, I mean, that's for maybe another day. This is.
it's a 44.7% tax increase this year.
But I did see a $25 decrease.
That's the funny math part.
That's the funny math. Yep,
At the work meeting in.
I'm guessing that's a no. Thanks for.
I'm a nay. You all can vote yes. but
Well, I
will
think
be
it would
a
have
nay.
to be unanimous. If anything was on that, I don't disagree with you.
Conservation.
We're not, are we having a work meeting in September with the league?
I don't know.
Brock
I
Jr.,
know we're
what-
not in.
I do not know. I apologize.
So there's an August 2nd and August 10th.
Oh,
And we're gone, oh, we're talking about September, sorry. So, no, league is the first Wednesday.
But do we need to move our, we're gonna have to cancel
No,
first,
work meeting is the third.
is the third, well, I know first Wednesday's open with the change. We need second, third, and fourth.
Second, third.
So yeah, you can probably get it on September.
Yeah,
So
immediately.
could you make a note to Brock to include the Virgin River Land Trust in the work meeting, talking about conservation easements?
And which work meeting?
September.
September work meeting? Yeah, I'll write it on his board.
Thanks, Jim. Anything else,
That's all I have, Mayor.
Lena?
I don't think I have much. No, Heritage Committee, we're meeting next week.
Yeah.
We're going to start discussions of what we've been talking about tonight. We're really looking to maybe find some good design guidelines for commercial buildings, not just the residential buildings that will be converted and renovated. Anyways, we're gonna start those discussions next week. And youth council starts next week. So outside of that, I have nothing to report.
Cool. Krista?
I heard from a city council member in St. George that the bathrooms at the shack have now been renovated completely and are more ADA accessible and also more easy for the lifeguards to monitor for kind of safety reasons. So she told me to go over there and check it out. I haven't had time yet, but just wanted to let you know that the bathrooms are awesome. I'm gonna go see them. It's good news. It was a good news report.
Good. Anything else?
Nope.
Yeah.
They canceled on solid waste.
Jared?
Just a couple of things. I should have said this earlier, but I'm very excited about paving the North Canyon View parking lot because my son has a humongous crack in his windshield from that parking lot.
Oh,
Somebody peeled out as he was pulling out, humongous rock in the windshield. So we get to put a new windshield in his car. So having it paved will be wonderful. The Utopian stalls are going really well. I haven't been to a meeting, but we got a report and we're officially a blip on their map now. And they said it's been going really well.
Is my area open yet?
I don't think so. They recently opened like Belisol and a couple areas in the Heights. I don't think the Valley is ready yet. I don't know what the holdup is. I haven't asked.
It works great.
Yes.
We've had no issues. None.
You like it.
Love it.
You got it.
Yeah.
They'll get to us.
It'd be
man.
great if they could report our take rate so that we could monitor it just a
I think
little
they
bit.
will. Yeah. In
Okay.
those meetings, they provide a report for every city and we're just so early. They haven't put that in yet, but we will
Okay.
get that and I can report that. And then my other question, well, I have two other things. For the public comment period, in the last meeting that I ran, we didn't have a timer going. We had a lot of comments. And maybe we should need to talk to council, like, should we really limit it to 3 minutes and say, please sit down? Is that up to mayor? Just let them keep
Where's the
talking?
clock? I've been promised a clock.
we do have a.
Right, it's here. We just, we're not using it. And
It
like,
has a doorbell.
But they can see it? If you have a clock and it
It's in the
counts
corner
down.
of the screen.
right
On the
there.
screen.
It's not very.
But it's in
So I
white right
can't see
now.
it.
You're right there. 257.
Oh, no, I want like 6-inch red letters right here, staring at them.
And it has a Smith and Wesson.
But they see that on that screen
That
right
comes
there,
out to
right?
10 left.
So they see it right in front of them. Oh, it's not?
There used to be a timer up there.
Yeah, it's right there. You can see it on the agenda right here. We'll have to
Yeah,
ask
but they
Lance.
can't. I'm
I
not
don't know
sure.
why it's a shadow. color.
No, there used to be a physical black box that sat right there that had red.
Right.
There is one, but.
It doesn't connect to this new system.
I think this is supposed to be the new way to do it. We just
Yeah.
need to make it more visible.
But I think it's supposed to
Because
show
up there, you
up
can't
here.
see it at all.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a
Can't see it up
doorbell,
there. So what they're looking at, they can't see.
Right.
or it goes off. And
Well, we'll have to ask Lance. I
Like a
don't know,
doorbell.
but it's on these side, and yeah, it does go off for him.
it was
And then-
showing when the screen wasn't white.
And then I
Don't know.
struggled with like half of more comments, half were questions. And it's like, do we really want to take another 30 minutes of the meeting to answer all these questions, or is it just staff will get back with you? Like, I didn't know exactly how to handle that. And it was, some of them I said we get back to you, some of them we tried to answer. It was kind of a mishmash.
Sorry, Jarrett, your time's up.
Exactly.
You still have.
So anyways, I like the new rules.
I've had to do that during public hearings. I said, they listened to it.
Like, I like the comment period. I like the new
You were
rules. It's just, it wasn't really easy to enforce the rules without a good timer. And then, again, I just don't know, is it a public comment period? Is it a public question period? Because I think we want to hear the feedback. We want to get questions answered too, but I don't know.
But they're cheating it a little bit because they're coming to treat it like a public hearing.
Right.
How many comments were related
For
to the
non-related,
two sides?
Most of them.
Right.
That's the part that
9 out of 10.
we really got to get away from. And I don't know if we don't have that item on the agenda when we have a land use item on. Let's drop it.
Do we do
Yeah.
it during a work meeting?
Well, that's what Brock and I talked about, was just putting it on the work meeting.
But now it's popped up on all the agendas. Was that your decision?
No, my decision was work meeting.
Yeah, which makes sense to me. There's going to be no decisions made in
Yeah,
that.
no
meeting.
decisions made. Then you can give them a little extra time. You still have to get through the agenda. And so at some point in time, you're gonna have to say, okay, I've taken 27 comments.
Yeah.
We've got to get the business
Basically
done.
the same problem.
Yeah, I mean, and no repeats. I don't want to say you gotta get a little bit belligerent, but you gotta at least lay the rule down.
I
That's
think
the doorbell.
Oh, it beeps.
I think St. George limits the number of comments to like
Yeah.
10 per meeting.
But
or
now
something.
they've put it specific to a certain meeting each month. They're not taking time at every meeting for
Right.
public
And
comments because
the
it
other
was getting
thing
too
is,
long.
I gave her all that time tonight. I shouldn't have gave her any.
Yeah.
Right.
This is before the meeting.
Mhm.
Well, and the thing is, that the process has been in place as long as I've been here. She's probably 10 times,
So it's-
so you know the process.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just gonna have to, I think moving it to the work meeting will take a lot of the fire out of it.
Do you want me to talk to Brock about
Yeah,
that?
just remind me.
Taking it off regular and just work
I can
meeting.
tell shit, Chris does the agenda. Work meeting only.
Work meeting only for public comment.
We don't
So
need
take it
Brock.
off.
I'm okay with that.
Decision made.
Yeah.
Done.
And
Well,
I have to
think That's a
go,
good way to do it, because then you can talk anything
right.
Sure.
while they're there, so.
And I read about that with St. George, what you said, Kristen, something was on their website as they've made this decision and it's a certain meeting each month. And I believe it is their work meeting that they've opened it up because people were taking 30 minutes to an hour during regular meetings.
Yeah.
So,
You want to be open, you want to accept comment, but they are cheating the system right now. And even that meeting I ran, like, they were really careful in the words they chose, so they weren't directly talking about the projects, but it was
They were.
all the way around it.
there were
So-
some nice guys there that moving. on.
Jim's getting kickbacks.
I am.
That's what I took out of it.
That's what
I have 220s
That's what
tonight.
I
It's increased. Oh, so just so you know, Clayton Levitt came in today and he was telling me, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, you're not. Just submit the subdivision plat application and we'll take you to TRC and talk about it, just asking me what I thought. I said, what I think is we need to be transparent and all those residents are right on top of us and just submit that application. We'll go through the process with TRC. That's what I think. And he said, oh, I know what you're thinking, those comments that were made. I wanted to stand up. I said, sure, Clayton, that's fine, but just submit your application.
Just take your thing and go.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my last thing is, I feel bad, I've been gone for the last 2 work meetings. So I've had no input on the water rates except for what Brock said in the last meeting. I've watched them all on YouTube. So is it best for me to just like send an email to everyone so you know what I'm thinking? Or do you want me to take
Vary a
5
lot
minutes
from
now?
where we ended.
We tried to be considerate of that in the last meeting.
Yeah, I'm just, well, I'll do it in 2 minutes. How about it? So I think just my main concern with where we ended at the last meeting, I like the thought of like not some crazy jump. But honestly, I think there's discussion in that meeting about we can get water conservation lots of different ways. And through rates is one way, but I hate raising a rate that we don't necessarily need to. Like, we're just gonna be making extra money. Like, the original was given before us covers all of our costs. That's what the engineers are telling us to charge. So adding on top of that is a little bit of a money grab in my mind.
Didn't we drop and raise?
But you didn't drop them to what the engineer.
At the 23,000 gallon mark, did not make that dollar jump. I believe we decided on 253 and 414.
Right, but the engineer said like 214, and then it was gradual going up. So that's my main concern. It's just we're kind of playing with those water rates that maybe we shouldn't. Like in the past, we've just approved what the engineer says we need to cover our costs. And if there was some other thing in there, we have some big project coming up, we might increase it or something, but.
We're covering our costs, but we're not putting anything away to do renewal and restoration. You know, and impact fees doesn't pay for that. You've got to keep that in mind. Like in the Heights,
Yeah.
we had the bond and we're still making that bond payment for, I don't know how many more years. If I can generate enough revenue to do a street a year, like we're doing right now, we'll never have to bond. That's
Yeah,
what you
so I
have to
guess
keep in
just maybe when
mind.
you come back, if there's gonna be an increase above what the engineer says, I want to be able to look a citizen in the eye and say it's because of this. Like right now, just from the way we talked in the last meeting, it's like we're penalizing high water users. And that's why the rate's going up. It wasn't because there's O&M that needs to be done or renewal and replacement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, would you like to have another discussion or work meeting? Because I was bringing this back for approval on the 26th of August.
And that's my struggle. It's my fault I've been gone. So.
What would council
But
like
this
to do?
affects a lot of people and it will be a pretty big increase. Even what we settled on, it's still a pretty big increase.
I know Brock has voiced to me that there is a little concern about the revenue in the water department in the past.
Yeah, and I don't want to refute that. We just don't have any direct evidence of what that is and how that equates to water rates. Because we just kind of threw numbers out at the end of the last meeting, right?
Well, we took the curve and instead of that jump in the middle,
Yeah.
we made it more of a.
Right.
That
So-
way, so you can use more water for less money, but then once you get over a certain amount, it's gonna start paying.
So let me ask you this, and this might, the lifespan of the entire water project, 30 years in the road, or is it more than that? Or
Which
less?
water project?
Just your piping in general, what's the average lifespan of a?
I'd say
water
more
line?
like 40.
So I mean, wouldn't your rates kind of, wouldn't you take that, like, if we had to replace everything in the city in 40 years, when you base your rate off that, or is it just covering water costs and pumping and?
It's just
overhead?
basically O&M. And that's why I think we need that steeper water rate to generate some more revenue. There's not a lot in there right now for renewal and replacement.
But that's, I think, what Jarrett, and maybe that's the way we need to look at it,
Yeah.
is just say, hey, the total water infrastructure of Santa Clara is $20 million. I don't know. You base that over a 40-year lifespan and say, okay, based on that and our O&M, this is what our rate has to be to hit. You know, it's kind of, like you said, I agree. I would rather do it that way than bond and pay on bonds and things like that. But that would give you be able to look the resident in the eye and say, hey, our every year we spend $500,000 for
And see, this is where,
Replacement.
in my mind, we need to get the state legislature to change our appropriation for impact fees, because we can use nothing for O&M. If we charge an impact fee as people are adding onto the system, and we can include the O&M costs for the future,
And you can use impact fees to upsize that for any upsizing in that. You can,
Upsize you can.
yeah, when you're,
But not for O and M, not for maintenance, not for replace. Can't use
Yeah, I don't-
impact fees for those two things.
that's a whole nother discussion from our
Yeah, that
neighboring
is.
city with parks and maintenance of parks. So, but I mean, you could, because you got your capital projects. I mean, could you not? You could set funds aside for that. So again, I'm just throwing that out. That's probably answers your question. It probably doesn't change much on the rate, but at least gives you the reason to say, hey, every year we spend X in replacement costs. This is what it is, and this is how we budgeted it.
Right. So I don't know if there's another discussion on that or if just you take that into account. I don't know. If I had been in the meeting, I would have voiced a little more concern over how we came to those numbers we came to. So I don't know.
You're coming back at the work meeting anyway. Or no, you're just.
No, he's coming
back
I'm
for
bringing it
approval.
back for approval in August,
Because it's taken so long
unless you'd like to have another discussion at a work meeting.
Well, there's no work meeting.
until
Until
September.
September.
So I don't know.
Well, you can discuss it again.
I mean, we'll have a discussion that night. and You could even change the numbers that night, right? During the approval.
Yeah,
So maybe that's,
So maybe what.
but you're having a public hearing, right?
huh?
It is a public hearing.
Yeah. So
So
I
if
don't
you want to
know.
bring it back for discussion, we've got to probably slide it back to the first meeting in September.
Or you could have it as a discussion item in a regular meeting, right?
Sure, we can do it, but we push the approval back to September and have the discussion in the work meeting or in the regular
In
meeting.
a regular meeting. And I think what we're asking, Dustin, is just some sort of backing for why we're choosing those numbers, but it's
Okay.
not just thrown out of the air to make it feel better for everyone. I don't want to,
Okay.
hope I'm not being mean, but just, I want to be able to really back up our decisions with some,
You got it.
some evidence. Okay, that was more than 2 minutes, I'm sorry. That's all I have.
Trying to think if anything I went to even mattered the last 2 weeks. The flood control board is open and we're starting to work on the 2024 budget. Won't have a lot of impacts to Santa Clara. I think most of our money will just slide forward in 2023. But that'll be ready for you guys to look at probably in your October, for sure by your October meeting. I think you'll be meeting in September, October, and November. Okay.
I'll be
Put it on
ready.
the board,
You know,
man.
I think we
DC's
need to
looking at my
compliment
blank.
staff
I
again
was just
too. I mean,
staring off
this,
into the distance.
Gary, I don't know how you've been able to keep us from having blackouts, but everybody else has had them. and You guys have succeeded in keeping us
Yeah.
going and I'm grateful.
I think he deserves. We've been so hard on him. He needs one.
That's what happens when you
Thank you.
authorize change orders, council.
He's been just beat down all year.
Are you back to full strength on the generators?
Yes, we are. Yep, they're all up and running.
Okay.
Cross your fingers.
Hey, Mayor, I wonder if the council all heard what happened to Dennis Fry.
Did you guys hear Dennis Fry got his foot caught in a corn harvester?
Corn, yeah, and a corn chopper.
He was last Wednesday.
Where is he?
His boy got his grandson. Yeah, but is that his son or his grandson? Son. Got a call. Dennis was down working at the farm, cutting the corn, got his foot caught in the chopper and ended up in the emergency room. They put a couple of screws in him and he said, give me some Tylenol, I'm going home. That's the last I heard. How's he doing?
He's doing good.
It's about it. It's pretty scary. I mean, he's probably about half a second away from losing his leg or being killed, so.
Mr. Fry.
What else? You got anything?
Not this.
Brock
evening,
doesn't
thank
have
you.
anything for this meeting?
You know, he told me to keep it short. He didn't.
Oh. Okay, well, I think that's all I had, council.
Sorry.
Move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I got a
Second.
motion by Denny and second by Jared. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right, I'm off to Phoenix.
There is a meeting to meet the candidate with Celeste tonight. If anybody's interested.
Baseball.
You going up there?
Mayor.
You'll be- Hey, yeah, and you need me to sign that thing. You got it printed?
I think Chris has it.
What do I have?